to another episode of Dark Shad-Bros. Thank you so much, everyone, first and foremost, for supporting us these last couple of weeks. I believe this is episode number 7. Also, just want to take the time to throw something out there. Episode 6 is kind of in a weird limbo land. That was our review of House of Dark Shadows, MGM's 1970 House of Dark Shadows. Due to some YouTube copyright issues and claims, the episode is currently kind of stuck. People have tried to watch it. There were some people who watched it the original night we aired it. But for the moment it is stuck. It looks like we may have to go back and do the episode over again. So stay with us on that. We will bring you our review of House of Dark Shadows because we were having a lot of fun that night. Now, for those of you who don't know me, and there's absolutely no reason in this whole wide world why you should, my name is Peter Mack. I've been a Dark Shadows fan kind of sort of since I was 4, but officially since I was 12. Got involved in the annual Dark Shadows conventions at that time. Made a lot of wonderful friends through fandom over the years. Eventually got to know some of the stars from the show, the actors, and actually got to work with them on theatrical projects and several charity function events. I worked primarily as a musical theater performer, cabaret artist, and a tribute artist, primarily as the late, great Judy Garland. So, and I know some of you out there have caught my act, even when Judy and or Liza made appearances at the actual Dark Shadows festivals. Now, moving right along, we're going to bring it to our other guest host, Mr. Michael Panzerato.
Good evening, everybody, from Baltimore, Maryland. I am thrilled to be back, especially to work with Penny. How exciting is that? And of course, I've loved Dark Shadows my life. I am an actor myself in no small part because of Dark Shadows, and just thrilled for this episode.
And moving right along, pardon me, I got a glass of water. You want a glass of water, Maggie? I got you a nice glass of water. Nothing like fresh water from an abandoned monastery. Our other Dark Shad bro, my husband, Dr. John Mack.
Hello. I'm Dr. John Mack. I will be co-hosting part of this evening. If you have any comments or questions, I'll be the one guiding those into our chat, both on Facebook and or YouTube. You can comment, and we can actually show your comments on screen. So comment. We love your comments. And just so you guys know, I am also an actor, primarily as B. Arthur. Cash that check. But I actually started out, one of my earliest acting jobs was in the 90s. I was one of the original cast members of Terror on Church Street in Orlando. And I was one of their main face characters who was a barker out on the street. And I did that for many, many years while I was going to graduate school. So with that being said, back to Peter.
Well, we also have a very special guest host with us. I am so thrilled that she is joining us today. You probably know her best from her award-winning podcast, Terror at Collinwood. She has been inducted, correct me if I'm wrong here, into the Rondo Horror Hall of Fame. If you have not caught Terror at Collinwood, you can watch it, you can listen to it on several different devices. Please welcome our award-winning guest host, Miss Penny Dreadful. Hey,
hello,
Penny.
guys. Hey. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
I have my ring here, so since I'm here now it's the Dark Shad hose. So
That's it. You're in. That's it. You're just.
Now it's a party, baby.
Now we got the party going. I love it. And you've got your brandy or your sherry. You've got sherry or brandy. What do you have there?
I do. I have my celebratory brandy. The sherry's in the other room, so when I run out, I'll go get that.
Oh, God.
And you may need it after this podcast.
Yes.
I gotta tell you, I love what you guys are doing. Your show is so much fun. I've been enjoying every episode. Although I did try to watch the House of Dark Shadows episode, but as you mentioned, there was some issue with that. But I look forward to that. But it's really fun. You have the live stream going with people making comments, and clips to those talking about, discuss it. It's really fun. So I'm so glad you guys are doing this. And I first saw you in the Golden Girls show many years ago out in the sisters. What a great time we had. In fact, before we started this, I texted both of my sisters and said, I'm doing a podcast with Golden Girls drag show. So what Golden Girls Live, that's so much. I immediately caught the Dark Shadows references that you guys dropped into the show, and it was like, you're a Dark Shadows fan, so afterwards I went up to you. Okay, who's the Dark Shadows fan? Because we brought references to like Dr. Woodard, I think, and
Dr. Hoffman.
Dr. Hoffman, yeah. So cool, so much fun. I absolutely loved it. We still talk about that show to this day. We talk about the Golden
great.
Girls show.
It was fun. Yeah, we did that. That was the reunion, the Lost reunion episode where they all get together a year after the show has gone off the air. So I just, anytime I can, I will laden in the Dark Shadows references. So we had Blanche's family doctor was Dr. Woodard. And then there was a Dr. Hoffman involved, and they were all little tidbits, the little Easter eggs that you had to look for. Yes.
Yep.
So I was thrilled. Now this is special. This is so special. Now we're a day early, but as I said to Penny, we're free thinkers here, because tomorrow is the 58th anniversary of the premiere of Dark Shadows, June 27th, 1966. Now, none of us on this panel were, I think, even a gleam in the Reverend's eye when when that first episode premiered. And I don't think they even had a clue. When did it take? I think it was June 13th that they actually taped that episode of 1966. If you ever go into Manhattan, the original studio is still there, where they filmed the first 50 episodes. And we lived not too far from there. I think that's where they filmed like The View and Kelly Ripa and what is their show?
Good Morning America.
Good Morning America. Yeah. So that's all filmed in that building. But today we're going to be celebrating all things Dark Shadows. Obviously, we're going to focus on the original series. We're all going to put in our commentary. We all tried picking our favorite scenes, which, as Michael pointed out, is like asking you to pick your favorite child or your favorite pet. So let's take that first journey back. Let's go back with Vicky and hop on that train from New York to Collinsport.
My name is Victoria Winters. My journey is beginning. A journey that I hope will open the doors of life to me and link my past with my future. A journey that will bring me to a strange and dark place, to the edge of the sea, high atop Widow's Hill, a house called Collinwood, a world I've never known, with people I've never met. People who tonight are still only shadows in my mind, but who will soon fill the days and nights of my tomorrows. Excuse me. I wonder if you'd know if they have any taxis here.
I wouldn't know what they have here. Not anymore.
Well, how do they expect anyone to get to town?
Broomsticks and unicorn. And chauffeured cars. Can I give you a lift? I can take you to the hotel. You'll get a taxi there.
That's very kind of you, Mr.
Devlin. Bert Devlin.
I'm Victoria Winters.
Welcome to the beginning and the end of the world, Miss Winters.
I'm afraid I'm not going that far. Only to a house called Collinwood. Do you know it?
Yes, I do. Very well.
I'm Victoria Winters. Is Miss...
Come in, Miss Winters.
opening scene, it, sucks you in. Now, Penny, since you are the guest host, thoughts on that opening, and also how you got involved, which we were talking a little bit during the preamble about how you initially got involved with Dark Shadows, for those who may not know.
Oh, well, my goodness, what a way to start a series. I've read articles that said Dark Shadows started as more or less a standard soap opera. Clearly, Dark Shadows was unique from day one. There were no soap operas or any other prior to that looked like that and sounded like that. We start out with that Jane. I just what the other on the air had the music. Some of those soap operas kind of minimalist sense. Usually, I mean, you have on the you have a full music. And it's no other show. The movies caliber details on TV. Shadows was special. I don't think there was ever these things. Never. It was always from the day. Clip right there. Alexandra Moltke, great, what a great cast. I mean, right away, I'm sucked in. As for how I got in, but my uncle Valdemar, and that is his real name, when he came to America from Portugal, he was a kid. He was about 10 years old when he got here in 1967, and he discovered Dark Shadows. From the get-go, he discovered pop culture on American television. Superman and Dark Shadows and Batman 66, the Monkees, all the cool stuff that was going on during that time. And Dark Shadows in particular really grabbed him. And he got into all the classic horror movies and would go to the Capitol Theater here, where I grew up in Bedford, and would see all the classic horror films and Hammer films that were, many of them were new at that time. And he was and famous imitating no he was the first person I knew who got a VCR, and a friend of his got him syndicated multi-generation copies of 1982. That was the first time I saw Dark Shadows, and so I had known. And in 1982, when I saw that first syndicated Barnabas really comes out of the coffin and grabs Willie by the throat, that was a visceral moment. That just hooked me too. And all I could talk about was that moment and that episode and wanting to watch more. I was addicted right away. I wanted to keep watching more of it, and I did. And he kept getting more tapes. The tapes. Oh no! Where? Meanwhile, they started playing the show in syndication, and so Uncle Val got an antenna so that he could watch my grandparents. Would get off the school bus. I think I was already in high school at that point, or junior high, and then going into high school, and I would saunter to my grandparents' house. So on Dark Shadows, and I watched. They played it all the way through mid 70s, and then it ended. Love Shadows tapes. I definitely bought all of those when those were coming out. I was working weekends at another clothes store to make some money, and all my money was going to buy Shadow. Yep, and I guess about 1986, I discovered Dark Shadows files. I discovered my scrapbook memories of Dark Shadows. I found it in Walden Books. Remember Walden Books? And that's how I was able to find around six, and I started subscribing to all the zines. World of Dark Shadow. Any all time. Such a good time to be a fan too, or to I remember Dark Shadows was going on, and there were zines and all of this stuff going on. So yeah, it was so cool. I get excited think remember the thrill, and I know you do too, Peter. Like just that thrill of like zine is whatever it was. Sentinel, Collinwood, so there were so endless.
It really was. I know for myself when I got the first tape, or maybe it was the third one, and they had there was a little like commercial for the introduction to Barnabas Collins' book. So we sent away for that. My mom bought me the book, and then when the book came, there was all of this stuff for a Dark Shadows convention, and I was like, "We're going. I have to go. We're going." It was at the World Trade Vista, and 3-day event, half a day on Friday, 2 full days on Saturday and Sunday, and I was promised we could go all 2.5 days, and then as we got closer, it was going to be wheedled down to 1. And I certainly was not prone to tantrums, but I was like, no, I'm not going down without a fight. And actually, my big brother stuck up for me, who was not a Dark Shadows fan at all, but he knew how important it was to me. And he's like, come on, guys, you promised him he could go to the whole event. So they worked it out so that I could be there all 2.5 days. The only thing I didn't get to stay for was the banquet, but that was really cool. And I made a collage for Catherine Lee Scott because I was in love with Maggie and Josette, and I presented that to her. And then on Sunday, getting to meet Jonathan was the huge deal. And I also made a collage for him of various photos of him as Barnabas. And this was the autograph line to get to Jonathan was so long, but I was not getting out of line. And I just remember by the time I got to him, you could tell all of the actors were feeling no pain. And I presented him with the collage, and he said, "Well, that's beautiful. That's lovely. You should be very proud of yourself." And he went to hand it out, and I said, "No, that's for you." And he said, "You made that for me?" And he was genuinely touched, and he took my photo, and he looked at my. He says, "This is Mom. This is Mom. Mom and son. Mom and son. This is Mom and son. To Peter with gratitude. To Peter with gratitude." And that's how he signed my photo. I was melting. I was absolutely melting.
That's so cool.
Michael, thoughts on that opening scene there? And I agree with you, Penny. It was never like any other soap opera. I don't know any other soap opera that has ever started that way or had that kind of a feel to it. So I echo your words. Michael.
The one thing I noticed about it that changed throughout the series, and I have to take notice next time the subsequent episodes, it was very dark. When I was very glamorous, Joan Bennett opens the door, and she looks like something out of a damned fairy tale, the way she looks so beautiful. And then she enters into the house, and the house itself is very dark. In other words, I wonder if they kept that, how much spookier it might have been, because we said before the black and white was scary, but the show itself, the look was different, the way everybody behaved was different. I was looking at Alexandra Moltke, and she looked like something of a fairy tale. Even in modern garb, her hair was absolutely beautiful. They did something, and I've said this before. Jonathan Fred used to say, it would coalesce on its own. But there always seems to me like, even without realizing, these early episodes were setting up for Barnabas. I mean, a family that lived like that, there has to be something hidden somewhere.
Right.
I don't know about a vampire, but something hidden somewhere to have a home that looks like that, and somebody to be that. I mean, just a fairy tale world setting up for any grander is because I didn't see the series. Like they didn't start it in Baltimore at that point. They started it when Willie broke Barnabas out. So I
Always.
hadn't seen these until I was an adult. And that was my first thought is, wow, without knowing it, they were preparing for him the whole damn time.
And I think it gets a
It was
bad.
glamorous.
I think it gets a bad. I think that first year, it's just shy of a year. I think the first year gets a bad rap. I think.
That's how I got addicted to the show. It was before Barnabas. Peter was playing it. It was one episode, then two. I started to ask questions, and then I was like, "Wait, is there another episode?" He's like, "Yes, there's another episode," and that's how I got hooked. Was the original storyline before Barnabas.
Yeah, it's. I just.
Yeah.
I don't think that first year gets enough credit. Also, it's only like. It's 70 episodes in because it's Josette's Ghost. That's the first Ghost we officially see. So it's not that for a weekly series. It's not that far in. Plus the fact that you do hear the sobbing, and we don't know where the sobbing is coming from. And I mean, I think Curtis went out of his way to say, you heard sounds, but you didn't necessarily know. Was the house haunted or was it not? Was this in Victoria's mind, or were the townsfolk right? Was Maggie Evans right? Stay away from the house. But that spooky vibe was always there. I mean, do you guys agree or no?
Yes.
Oh. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Didn't Dan Curtis say once that he thought that most horror films had it backward? That in most horror films, nobody believes. They only believe in what they see. Everybody's very logical. Nobody wants. But I think he said that the average man would be prone to actually be more find like ghosts and something more credible than films play them out to be. And I think Dark Shadows kind of gives you that, like what he's saying. You heard something, but you didn't know what you were hearing. In all the townspeople saying the house, it is a casual kind of thing, and I agree with him. Certainly, everybody I know had a family member with a ghost, something like that, and he sort of gave the series that sort of like, maybe it was a ghost, maybe it wasn't. Who the hell knows? But it's fun to hear. That kind of a vibe. So he was in his own way a genius with that stuff.
I also think that Vicky gets a bad rap. She's kind of, yes, she's a victim, but particularly in that first year, before Jonathan gets there, there's a couple of times where she goes head to head with Roger. She even goes head to head with Elizabeth. I love the scene where Sam Evans frightens her on Widow's Hill, and I was going to show that clip when he grabs her by the shoulder and he's like, "Go home, miss," and this cracks me up because I don't know whether it was conscious or not, but she just looks at him and she goes, "Who are you?" And it makes sense because she was raised in New York, so she would have that New York accent. I don't know if it was just a happy accident, but I giggle because I'm like, you can take the girl out of New York, but you can't take the New York out of the girl. So I like that, and I like Vicky. I think too oftentimes she gets a bum rap, and she's the eyes of the audience. We're watching the show through her eyes, which goes away a little bit after Barnabas comes into it, and then they roll back around to it. Go ahead,
I
Michael.
think with Vicky, had she not been how she was, I think Barnabas would have been a harder swat. In other words, she kind of before Julia, Victoria was all about how romantic, how enamored of the past, how this and how that he was, and I think that helped us to love that aspect. We got more of Barnabas from as much from her as we did from Barnabas. That gentlemanly, from another time almost, something different about him. That came from Victoria. If Victoria had been not the way she was, this enamored orphan who's in a place she perhaps doesn't belong and is utterly fixated by all that's around her, I don't know that Barnabas would have been as keenly, and was. And I think he set all that up for us, or helped us a lot with that.
Yeah.
Now, when they got into the spooko, go ahead, Penny.
I was going to say I agree with everything you said, particularly, with regard to Vicky, especially in that first year. She's in. And honestly, with her, can understand you. I mean, it's the normal person who's thinking that those circumstances. God, that's no, but he still was in go confront people like Nicholas Blair and Cassandra, and even still was when Dark Shadows. They even Curtis was when he was a kid. Very early. So there was Night Squad in a figure, and of course, who is that? That wasn't Roger. That wasn't who was that? So, first real book and into the page where we see Josette's and
Hey, Penn.
Yeah.
Sorry to bother you. We are getting a comment from one of our longtime fans, Eddie, that your microphone's cutting in and out.
Mine?
Yep, we hear you
Maybe
perfect now.
Stay closer. Stay closer.
Okay.
Stay closer.
Yep.
There we
Sorry
go.
about that.
No
perfect.
worries. No worries. We want to
We
hear.
love what
we
you
want,
say,
we want all of
man.
your input. We love your input.
Genius.
Continue, please.
I mean that was basically it. We see the book open by itself, and we see the Josette entry, and of course there are always references to books. We don't know metaphorically or literally, but they always talk about when they meets Maggie. She tells her, "You don't want to go to things. The things I've heard about that place is, send you right back to New York or something." It's always that. There's some bad stuff that happens in that house, and you don't want that kind of thing. So it's right off the bat, you're getting that. So.
And 1795, I was recently. I try to pick my battles on the boards. you really have to try to pick your battles on the boards, but she's supposed to be an educated teacher, and she is just setting herself up for this being accused of being a witch. I'm like, how would any of us feel if we were sitting at a table one moment and sent back 200 years in time? We're not necessarily going to be thinking, quite rationally. I mean, that's just my take on it.
Agreed. And I agree with what you said in a previous episode where someone was defending parallel time, Angelique. What? She is so evil. She is
right.
Our Angelique, she's bad. But that Angelique, there's no shades of gray whatsoever with that. She is bad news. And
exactly.
I don't know if there's any way to, and although, like you said, all those characters in 1970, most of them are nice people. Including Quentin, at that time, nobody is really a pleasant person. And pure evil and no defense for character.
And by the way, we talk about this all the time, but Lamar loved playing all of those different layers. That was
it's so much fun to watch. Yeah.
Right? But the person who keeps posting these weird comments is like this. I can't call it like a Laura Parker defender because it's like peculiar. It's that she thinks that Laura always has to have this dimension of emotion of being a scorned woman, but that is not anywhere present in that timeline. We have several comments, by the way. We have a lot of people watching.
Yay! Bring them on.
We know that they're coming. A lot of them are coming from Terror at Collinwood. Leaf Shimmer. I have a friend.
Steve! Hi!
Hi, Steve. I have a friend whose favorite character is Liz, now and forever, and his favorite line is, "Because I choose to do so." That tells you she is the mistress of Collinwood.
That's right. Don't forget,
Love that
guys,
one.
like and
1000%.
subscribe. I forgot to say that at the
Like
start
and
of the
subscribe.
Like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us a lot. So please like and subscribe if you like what we're doing.
And we'll sleep with each and every one of you on Halloween.
We'll show you the Collins family jewels.
Michael is pointing at everybody else.
Oh, now getting into the spooko factor, as I mentioned, that it didn't take too long. This is a classic moment in Dark Shadows history. I know Robert Costello said they had a blast when they filmed this. First part is in the studio, but the really great part is actually upstate New York, or kind of sort of upstate New York. So let's see that moment when Dark Shadows really went out there into the ether, as Alexandra Moltke would say.
No, husband of mine.
Yes.
What would that one be called?
Oh, that is, hang on, Legend of.
Okay.
Legend of.
It's Josette Collins.
That's the lady in white.
This is your drawing. You copied it from this painting.
No, I didn't. I told you. Just looks like her, because that's who it is. She can't ever leave Collinwood.
How do you know she can?
She told me so.
David, stop with that nonsense.
It isn't nonsense. She told me she's condemned to stay here until a third girl dies at the rocks at the bottom of Widow's Hill. I was hoping she'd come and see you,
Why?
because maybe you're that third girl. Maybe you're the one that will fall and die at Widow's Hill.
I love that scene.
Standard soap opera.
It looks like,
Right.
do you guys ever watch any of these on YouTube, like Nuke's Top 5 or Slapped Ham or any of these
Oh
where they
yeah,
catch
yeah,
ghosts on camera all the time? And it really, watching that is very eerie.
yeah. Totally. It
The
looks like a
music, the
paranormal. It looks like
dark
slapped
of night.
ham. Like, I totally agree. It looks like
Exactly. I
something
was
that
just sitting
caught
here
on
thinking
camera,
that is
like,
so
yeah.
freaking eerie.
I totally agree. with you.
Totally, it
It's
was
so
creepy.
eerie and it sticks with you. It gets under your skin. It's gorgeous and spooky and
Mhm.
unsettling.
I just want to interrupt for 1 second.
Exactly.
Go for
I
it.
want to show one thing. I found this picture And this is little Peter Mac at
Ah,
Lyndhurst
Ah,
holding
I love it.
the wolf cane, wearing his cape. Anyway,
My first Barnabas cape, yeah. I was thrilled when I found that. It was a Sherlock Holmes costume kit, but it was the closest I could find at the time, so.
so cute.
oh no.
Yeah.
And the cane was the real cane, wasn't it?
That was the real cane. I have my cane. I've got, let's see, we've got Barney. I was waiting until Barney came out, but there we go. We've got our cane here, and then we have, which they did a pretty good job when the 2012 movie came out. You know, they did a pretty good job for a plastic cane at doing a replica. So we got one of those there too. We got a whole collection here.
You know what? All four of us should get
That's
that
cool.
cane, and then when we can vote on stuff, and we can give it a Wolfie.
Yeah, I have mine
from now
here.
on, well, there
You
we go.
do?
So that's it.
See?
Well, we'll do our little, give it a Wolfie if you like it.
I love it.
But you're right, Michael. It does.
I'm in.
It looks like something out of a paranormal show that you would watch now. It really looks creepola.
Steve just wrote KLS channeling Isadora Duncan. Marvelous.
Josette choked to death on her shroud.
We have a comment from Eddie here. Eddie says,
Eddie, we love Eddie.
"Hey guys, it's great to see Penny again. I met her at the Salem Witch Trials Memorial a couple of years ago with Helen Samaras and Marge Hicks when we were visiting Salem one day. So yay, Eddie."
There you go.
Oh my God, I remember. Yeah, I remember hanging out with you guys. That was so much fun. It's commenting. It's to see you on here. Well,
Eddie's good. Eddie's very good people.
Eddie's great people.
He's good people
Yeah.
and he's a lot of fun. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we had a good time. Yeah, that was really cool. That was when I was living there. Actually, that was I went down there and met them and went over to see where they determined near where Gallows Hill was, and they have the little memorial there, which is weird because it's like right behind the Walgreens or
Walgreens?
something there.
That's right.
But yeah, it was cool to go there with them.
Yeah.
They've actually built it now so that there's a ledge and a park where you can stand. So they built out an
Nice.
extension. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You have to be respectful because there are homes, private homes right adjacent
Yeah.
to it, but yeah. But it's very nice what they've done. Anywho, getting back to DS. Yeah, I just love and I love the ghost of Josette. I love everything that happens with her, and in those early episodes in particular. Once we get into the really creepy storyline that's going to make it even possible for Barnabas to come on the air, because I think the next storyline doesn't get quite enough credit, and I'm talking about the Phoenix storyline. I love that. I watch that every October, like late September going into Halloween. To me, it's a page turner. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. I think Laura was a little bit more of a predictable villain as opposed to Barnabas, but she's still delicious. And if nothing else, that monologue about the Phoenix, which Diana Millay fell in love with at her not audition as she called it, I think again, the show doesn't get enough credit for the good writing, and here is a prime example of that. Do we have that clip?
We sure do.
And there are the tallest palm trees, with trunks curving up into the sky. The kind of trees that make a wonderful nesting place for the phoenix.
The phoenix? What's that?
A legendary bird. A bird that's said to live forever.
I've never even heard of it.
Well, not many people have. In fact, it's said that there's only one on Earth at a time.
What does it look like?
Oh, it's very beautiful. It has a scarlet head and body, and it has sea blue eyes. and its wings are iridescent.
I wish I could see one.
Well, perhaps you can, in your imagination. Try to picture the beautiful bird flying high in the clouds and listen. The flap of its wings as it flies from century to century.
It must be pretty old.
Oh, that's one of the fascinating things about it. It doesn't grow old for 100 years, and even then it doesn't lose its beauty. Then one day, it feels its wings growing heavier, and it knows it hasn't much time. It hears death calling, so it knows what it must do. It starts on its last long flight in search of the very tallest palm tree. Then it gathers up all the sweet-smelling spices and it builds a very special nest on top of the tree. And then at dawn, the phoenix awakes, begins to sing. And then the sun rises and, the rays become very strong and they beat down on the dry nest. And slowly it starts to smolder. And the phoenix fans the spark with its wings until the entire nest is ablaze. And the beautiful feathers, they all catch on fire. And the whole bird is consumed in flame and burned to ashes. And from these ashes, the phoenix is reborn to live on and spend the next 100 years in paradise.
Wow. Good stuff. Good stuff. I don't think the storyline gets enough credit, and it was Malcolm Mormerstein who said it really was Laura and the Phoenix storyline that made it even possible for Barnabas to get on the air, because it was through that cycle that ABC renewed them again. And I love the atmosphere of that storyline. Again, I call it a page turner because the way everything unfolds, the way you mentioned, Penny, about the book opening up, and you see a lot of that starting to happen throughout that storyline. The books opening on their own, Vicky being drawn to the mausoleum, and our first introduction to the groundskeeper, who I absolutely adored, Daniel Keyes. I was so sad when he was replaced because I wanted a whole story just about him. But I love the detail to the effects. The way Laura emerges at one point in that the mausoleum where all of her ancestors have been buried, the way the coffin opens up of its own volition after they've disinterred it. I just love that storyline. I love that storyline.
And she's so beautiful. What a beautiful woman.
Gorgeous lady.
She worked with my godmother. My godmother was Dobie Gillis's mother, Florida Freebus, and she was Dobie's girlfriend.
Clinky.
Oh, company's coming.
Sorry. I got really excited just now.
Oh, but what a beautiful woman. And what just a simple scene with the fire in the background. You know exactly what is happening. Beautifully shot. Eddie Lucas made a comment a few moments ago, and this really harkens back to what Penny was saying at the top of the show. Soap operas at this time were those old-fashioned organ music, but this is a fully orchestrated sound. It sounds amazing. What was her name? Sybil
Weinberger.
Sybil Weinberger. I mean, she chose and works closely with Robert. The music is just brilliant. Brilliant. Anyway.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
And she went on
Again,
to
eerie.
marry Robert Costello.
Eerie.
Yeah. Eerie, yes.
She married Robert Costello, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, you did a whole great episode about the music.
Yes, with Ben Alba. and we talked all about Robert Cobert's different musical scores. And Ben is a musician. He just told us, you know,
I love
so
that
he would
episode.
give little snippets of some of the different themes that we were talking about, which was really fun. But I agree with everything you guys said about the Laura storyline. The Laura storyline is pivotal. It like you said, it set the stage for the show, and it was also Dark Shadows from all Gothic tales. Phoenix, of course, this worm is this that child into the flames several decades and 100 years. 97. Sometimes it, but it's weird, super weird, but it was unearthly. So, and just playing the character, casting Diana she was such a eccentric in such a wonderful way, and it worked so well. She worked so well as Laura. Great character, and the David Hesse was brilliant. Just the interplay. Laura's prior to that, it was a bad scene. Was like psychopath. Roger was a recipient psychopath. After what happens with Laura, after she tries to immolate him and take him into the flames, he makes the choice to go to Vicky, and that's a key moment for that character. David is still kind of an ass after that a lot of times, but he softens as a character. He becomes more human after that, and it's a really great storyline. Definitely doesn't get enough credit.
And we've talked about this before, but what's so amazing about this storyline, I think Michael's going to say the same thing, is that we get to see Joan Bennett's humanity and how much she loves David and will not let David go. And I love the interplay between her and Diana Malay and the indifference of Roger. You know, that's really where you start to see a lot of his character come out. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Michael, thoughts?
I was just going to say, how bloody innovative were the writers to come up with a phoenix? I mean, eventually they did like the Gothic, like the European monsters, the vampire, the werewolf, the living dead, the witch. But the phoenix is such an odd, random sort of character out of mythology. You know, to have brought that into 1960s on American television, that was kind of ballsy to take that. I mean, they could have made her just a witch, or they could have made her something, I don't know, else, but to make a phoenix, that was pretty. That's not something, a character or a thing you hear until Harry Potter. You really, even after, heard very often of, and it was what a great kind of choice to let's do a ghost. Okay, what should we do next, chat? All right, let's do a phoenix. I mean, that's really, really cool, really off the wall, and it worked beautifully. You know,
it was a happy
that's
accident.
all I can say. And
it was a happy accident
was
because Malcolm said I saw in looking at the storyline in the Bible that Laura was returning from Phoenix, Arizona, and so he's like, why don't we just make her a phoenix? And they all said, what the hell is a phoenix? What the hell is a phoenix?
Yeah.
So that's
exactly.
It was just a happy coincidence.
I'll
the fact
also
that they
say
brought her back in that prequel, Fire and Ice, definitely got to check it out.
Oh right. You were telling me about
that's
that.
right. Joanna Going plays Laura in that. I will say too, it's important for Carolyn's character because when Liz goes into that catatonic state as a result of Laura's supernatural powers, she puts Carolyn in charge of the estate, and we see Carolyn kind of step up much to Roger's chagrin too. It's really cool because you get to see some of Carolyn's moxie and backbone there. Because prior to that, Carolyn was always kind of spoiled teenager, troubled, whatever. She's in this house and she's the wild child. But now we see Carolyn kind of take that role, and it's really cool to see that development for Nancy Barrett's character.
She really steps up to the bat. Yeah, and I love the scenes where she goes head to head with Roger. Because it is just annoying the crap out of him that she's the mistress of Collinwood. He sneers at her.
And once again, I'm just going to say this real quick. Kudos to the forward thinking in Dark Shadows, because once again, you have a story involving three formidable female characters. You've got Elizabeth Collins Stoddard, you've got Laura and Victoria, all sort of battling over the boy. And to be honest with you, the men were always Barnabas and Quentin were the two major male characters. They were always in trouble and being bailed out by Doc Hoffman or Angelique, and even Nicholas Blair. Angelique ended up stomping all over. The show just was so forward thinking with the female writing. The written characters in this, they were not your average female for that era, and I think that's great.
Well,
Watching Laura, all I could think of was another powerful woman.
Yeah. Speaking of formidable women, I love the fact that Mrs. Johnson is playing defense. Anytime Laura tries to come in the house, she's blocking the stairway like she is a goalie, man. She is not letting her upstairs, right, Penny? I mean, she's great.
Yes.
She is just like, no, you're not going up there.
Love Mrs. Johnson. Absolutely love Mrs. Johnson. Yep.
Yeah, those early episodes, man, she has got some great, and nobody is messing with Sarah Johnson. She's
no.
Yeah, she's great. Well, while we're on the subject of happy accidents, and we just saw Sprat House, we were supposed to talk about this in the Hodds thing, but some fans know this and some fans don't. It was never apparently a part of the original story trajectory. They went to Lyndhurst. Not even to use the mansion. They were just using the driveway to be the driveway of Collinwood, Seaview Terrace up in Rhode Island, and for the side of it to be Matthew Morgan's cottage. They were setting up lights, and Dan said, I'm going to go take a cigarette break and walk around, and he stumbles upon this crumbling, decaying old mansion. And it's like, oh my God, this has to be in the show. And he races back up and says, as soon as we're done here, we got to get back down. I found a new place. Well, what is? I don't know what it is, but it's got to be on the show. And that's how the old house was born. Wow. It was never part of the original trajectory, but it's Michael, you were saying it's your favorite house, and as much as I love Collinwood, the old house, I think is definitely my favorite house of the two of them. I'm an old house. How about you, Penny?
Oh, I will always, Seaview Terrace, Collinwood is always going to have the top place for me, but Old House is a very close second, and it broke my heart. I found out it burned down during the run of the show. What a heartbreak that was. But yeah, I love the Old House. It's so distinctive, and that's the one I just recorded an episode on the 1991 Dark Shadows series, and that's as much as I did like the 1991 series, but Collinwood, it's just there's something so distinctive about Collinwood and the Old House in the original series where they're iconic. You see them and it's etched into your brain. Whereas Greystone, the angles they showed, it was cool. It's a beautiful mansion. It just doesn't have that thing that pops about the original ones.
They could have done two things, from my opinion, and Dan was notoriously a little bit of a spendthrift when it came to things like this. I think all they had to do was just if they could have added a portico to that and maybe some columns just to or there is an old house in Beverly Hills and it was used for the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh, sure.
It is almost a doppelganger, and it's right down the road. So if they ever do a reboot, and we'll get on that subject later, there's your old house. It's right down the road from Greystone. It's got the columns, it's got the portico, it's got all that stuff. But I'm with you. The fact that it just looks like another side of Collinwood. It doesn't look like its own character.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, the thing about the Collins family and the housings for me, we talked about this before, being from Maryland, and you're one of the original 13. You saw a lot of those houses because they all look like DC.
Yeah.
You know, anybody who had money seemed to want their home to mirror DC, that Greek modern thing. So the fact that Joshua fought in the Revolutionary War and the secret room was built to hide munitions and all of that, and the family jewels during the war, you would think that that would have registered, hey, that this is a family that probably would have shown off by having a house that looked sort of had a DC vibe, had that sort of popular vibe, and the other the great house looked like a castle. It had a very castle-ish look, where the newer one just looked like a big ass house. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you'd see a big mansion. It was just another big mansion with lots of rooms, whereas our original sort of took your mind back to Europe and to the old state houses in Europe and all the baronial homes. It would seem just less imagination in the newer with the newer, which is sad because it was, you know, it's like the
Much less
Enterprise on
so.
Star Trek is a character in the series.
Hmm.
You
Yes.
know, blow up the
Yes.
Enterprise, whole audience is like, oh, they blew up the Enterprise. It happened like 15 times, but they blew it up. It's a character on the show. So was the Great House. So was, I mean, it had a West Wing. How are you gonna have a wing when it's just a big
Yeah.
block house? You know?
And that's why it was so devastating in 1995 when you see Collinwood just completely destroyed, and in such bad disrepair. It's shocking, and it hurts to see that, because it's Collinwood. It is a character in the show. I think, as Jeff Kenny said, it's the only
Hmm.
thing you see in every single episode of Dark Shadows. All 1,225 episodes of Dark Shadows, you see Collinwood either in the opening or at some point in the show. Yeah.
And when the Warner Brothers remake,
100%.
the pilot, again they were using Greystone. And
Well, they were using it for Collinwood.
yes,
I
but,
think there's a place card for the old house
right.
that looks kind of more. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's a place card, but it's not Greystone. It's
Right.
Oh, really? I thought it was part of Greystone. Okay.
And then the interiors, that big staircase that she walks down is the theater.
it's the old house is a very prestigious old theater in Los Angeles.
The interiors
For
are-
the old house, and
Oh,
then
the interior. Okay.
Josette's bedroom is actually the ladies' room of that theater.
Yeah.
They converted it into Josette's bedroom for that 2004
Yeah.
pilot.
We should
No,
do
they
a whole
also.
episode.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
We should do a whole episode on the old house.
Oh, we could do a whole episode about the houses. Absolutely. So now Laura, all of a sudden the ratings shoot up again, and what are we going to do next? And according to Mr. Curtis, I'll come up with the scariest thing I can think of. What frightened me the most as a kid? It's going to be a vampire. And this clip needs absolutely no introduction whatsoever.
You're going to tell your husband what
I
Got it. Oh. Well, that's pretty self-evident.
Selfish, yes.
Nobody hangs up a thing around here. Yes?
I'd like to see Mrs. Stoddard, if you'd be so kind.
Mrs. Stoddard?
This is Collinwood, isn't it?
Yes.
And the mistress here is Mrs. Elizabeth Collins Stoddard, is she not?
Yes.
Then perhaps you'd do me the courtesy to inform Mrs. Stoddard that her cousin is calling and wishes to pay his respects.
Cousin?
Yes, her cousin from England.
From England? Oh, please, come in.
I'd be delighted, thank you.
Oh, would you like to wait in the drawing room?
Here would be fine, thank you.
Oh, well, I'll let Mrs. Stoddard know you're here.
Oh, madam, if you would, you may tell her that it's Barnabas Collins.
And we have blast
Yes.
off. Yay! Get your ulti out. Yay!
I never noticed watching that before, and I don't know how I missed it. She almost seems hypnotized by him. Mrs. Johnson, I never noticed. He almost seems like she's in a trance looking at him, like
Yeah.
she actually snaps herself out. I never noticed that before.
Well, I always figured that was because she always saw. That's an interesting take on it, that he's kind of hypnotically influencing her. But I figure she always saw him in the portrait, that
Right.
exact
Right.
this, since she's been working there, and it's like, oh,
Face.
here's a guy who looks exactly what I've been looking at. But yeah, good take on that.
Right. How many
I
times?
never saw those big eyes just looking at him.
Yeah, she plays it really well, and I know he was never happy with.
We have 7 people total who have all mentioned Clarice and how amazing she is.
So underrated on the show. And Frid pointed out that she really held his hand that first day, that she walked him through. I believe that he said Clarice and Joan really were there for him in terms of getting him through, because he was terrified. I mean, he had only done one other. He had played a psychologist on, was it Days of Our Lives?
Right.
Or it
Yep.
was one of those other famous. Yeah, he was like but it was one of those things where now he's it. That he was aware that this is supposed to somehow save this sinking ship, and I'm part of it, and that's a lot to have on your shoulders out the gate.
Agreed. Yeah.
So,
That-
how
that-
Penny.
Good.
That was why, I mean, I recently did an episode celebrating Clarice Blackburn with Tweety Blackburn. She's great. I met her at Seaview Terrace, and she's one of the admins. She admins of several groups, including the Dark Shadows Appreciation, and a few other groups out there. But yeah, she mentioned to me that Clarice Blackburn is one of her favorite actresses on the show, and I said, let's do an episode on her, because she deserves it. She doesn't get enough credit, and I just love just the humor that she infuses into that moment. Like, nobody picks up anything around here, that kind of just the vibe. She's this put upon housekeeper, and then here's this. I mean, Jonathan, my God, what presence and gravitas he has, just from the get-go. The sophistication, just the whole vibe, just this eccentric, all of the above. He just hits all the right marks. He walks in, and I like imagining what it was like if you were watching Dark Shadows from day one. We're just going along with it, and all of a sudden this guy shows up. Wow, that must have just been mind-blowing at that time. Holy moly! Like, here's this incredible Shakespearean actor who walks into the show, and you got a vampire now on your TV set, on daytime TV. No wonder the kids were running home from school to watch Dark Shadows. It's not a surprise. Some people tell me, oh, he became a teen idol. What are you talking about? Are you kidding me? He just, the charisma and just the compelling quality of his performance that just pulls you in right away. It's not a surprise to me. He's just absolutely incredible. Iconic. I played that clip. They asked me at the Monster Expo convention. I was doing appearances Penny Dreadful, and they asked me to do a Dark Shadows 101 panel, which I was like, yes, absolutely. And I played that clip, and the audience, many of which hadn't watched Dark Shadows before, they all applauded for that clip. They all cheered when they saw that.
Wow.
They knew, it was just, it hits you right away, and it's so good. Jonathan Frid, God, to quote Henry Kaplan, A+.
Right, A+.
Yeah.
You need your baton. I love that. I love that. I know he was never satisfied, and we were looking at the movie. In the movie version, he plays it more in that kind of nervous thing, like, oh my God, I can't believe this portrait is even here, and he's kind of trying to downplay it. But I love that he's so triumphant looking, like, when you can curse on this particular show. It's like, Dad, you son of a bitch, you locked me up, and I'm back.
Yep. I love it. That
Michael.
when
You
I
do get a lot of that sense that I broke out in those early episodes with him. There's a very strong tension between Joshua and Barnabas, and you feel that very heavily in the first couple episodes. And with that thinking on it, you would see him being triumphant about I'm back and this place is mine now. When he talks about those of you who are here, it's mine now, and all of that. It's very, and you're absolutely right about his breath. I was looking and thinking the coat was new, so the collar stood up beautifully, and just seeing him from behind, the way the collar was, it almost looked starched. And then that voice comes through. You don't even have to see him, but the voice is just, it kind of puts you in sort of a hypnotic kind of.
He
You get
sucks
that
you
kind of
in.
expression like her, like I said this before, if the show, and I wouldn't have wanted it to, I like it exactly as it went, could teeter very closely a Salem's Lot situation, which it sort of did more in the movie by the whole cast being vampires in the end. But
yeah.
you think about it and thought if he had stayed the way he was and not softened, and we've talked about that before, it would have been very creepy. He would have been extremely scary.
Oh yeah.
Very scary.
Yeah.
It's a touchy subject because obviously Dan came up with the concept of the vampire, that he wanted Count Dracula, and it really is Jonathan's credit, and I think this is what caused the that tension between the two of them forever, and until they both finally closed their eyes. It was, but it really was Jonathan's approach of I'm not going to play a one note monster. It's boring. It's going to get old really
Yeah.
fast. And the writers were on board, and it's just we kind of lucky that Dan was off doing pre-production of Jekyll and Hyde with Jack Palance, and I think he was preempted by about a week. So they had a little meeting. There was a strike, either a writer's strike or some kind of Screen Actors Guild strike. So they all met, and he gave his thoughts, and they said we're on board with you. So I think Curtis was not thrilled when he got back and saw what they were doing, but you can't argue with success. It worked.
Agree 100%. I mean, Dan Curtis did so much for Dark Shadows, and the fact that he decided we're going to do a vampire is huge. But he wanted a marauder. He wanted, like you said, he wanted Count Dracula. Jonathan Frid always says in interviews he liked playing between two poles. He liked playing the good and the evil and the good. He liked those gray areas. And Ron Sproat leaned into that. Joe Caldwell leaned into that. They got it. They were playing into that. So Jonathan Frid as Barnabas could be absolutely terrifying. He could do some really scary stuff, but he was always, there was something wounded about him I caught that immediately when I was a kid. I mean, one of the things I sent to Peter was when he's telling Dr. Woodard is talking about the supernatural strength of the man that broke into the lab and stole the slide, and Barnabas says. Woodard says, you sound almost like you admire him. And Barnabas says, no, in fact, I loathe him. I loathe him very deeply. And he meant it. The self-loathing was there very early on. I mean, even though he was doing some bad stuff, Frid used that into the character, his delivery, and it made you feel for the character. That's why I always say, people always point to Anne Rice. We were talking a little bit before this. I get irritated when people say, well, Anne Rice was the first, multifaceted, sympathetic vampires. No, there were sympathetic vampires before Barnabas, but they, Dracula's daughter, Varney the Vampire. Barnabas made like a meteoric impact on vampire portrayals. Big time, and totally changed the trajectory of how vampires are depicted. You don't get True Blood without Barnabas. You don't get Anne Rice vampires and Lestat and without Barnabas. 100% no. Buffy the Vampire Angel. You don't get Angel without Barnabas. All of that. Key thing in vampire.
He changed the face of the vampire in pop culture. We were talking about pop culture and giving Dark Shadows its proper nod. I mean, not only did he make the show a success, but the vampire was rewritten pretty much after, I mean, even Love at First Bite, you that was a different take on Dre. It was comedic, but he did have that more of a Josette Barnabas relationship with that girl chasing her through to New York, and
Oh,
all
Blackula,
Fred, and
William Marshall. I mean,
yeah,
absolutely,
oh yeah,
100%. Yeah.
Totally derived from Barnabas. Totally derived from Barnabas. Absolutely. Yeah.
just insane.
Chaining him in the coffin, and the long lost love, and that
Yep.
was William Marshall. Apparently, he said I read that script, and it was like very bad. I hate to use the term, but black exploitation. It was very one note, and so he was the one that said, no, let's give him layers. Let's make him romantic. Let's make him sympathetic. I'll put the bushy eyebrows on and the fangs. They're fine. I can do that, but we need to give him some layers. So, and another Shakespearean actor. I mean, he had the same kind of
Yes.
background.
I was gonna
Oh,
say,
loved him. And then it
I
goes
think
all the way to
Miss
Francis Ford
Parks, you
Coppola.
needed a Shakes. Oh yeah, absolutely. The
Well, and
Coppola,
there
a
were,
100%.
and well,
Yeah,
and there was a lawsuit about all of that.
I heard about that. How did that play?
Really? I
So
didn't
what?
know that.
It's Darren Gross knows more about this, and that was how I first heard of it. But Curtis apparently sued Coppola because it was Bram Stoker's Dracula, and I mean, essentially, it's almost a rip off of Curtis's Dracula because you've got the long lost love thing going on, which Curtis did steal from himself from Dark
Yes.
Shadows. But there was a lawsuit, and I believe Curtis did get some kind of a settlement out of that. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that they did get some kind of a settlement because it was the same kind of title, even though you can't copyright a title, and the idea was there. I think there was something, but then again, Art Wallace. There was no lost love between Art Wallace and Dan Curtis because,
Yes.
according to Art, he's like, I don't know where this dream came from, but I had no, I don't have any recall of any dream of a young girl on a train, but we could go down that road at another time. That was Art. Art was not a very happy camper, apparently. So,
And what was his credit? Did
certain characters created and developed by Art Wallace.
Yeah. And the
Yeah,
story Bible, I mean, if you read, I know many episodes in the early days are written by Art Wallace, and he wrote the story Bible for the show. Clearly, Art Wallace was a very important player in Dark Shadows, too.
absolutely.
And I can understand why he was frustrated, but Dan Curtis was, I mean, it was his show. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it was his show. So,
There we
yeah,
go.
there it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
There's the Bible, which is very hard to find, and I'm hoping Catherine might consider doing like a limited pressing of these because fans want them, and it's great to read because you just get so much stuff that didn't happen because of the trajectory where the show went versus what it was supposed to be originally. So if you don't have it, try to grab a copy, but like they go anywhere from $85 to $100 now on
Yeah.
Amazon and eBay, but it's so worth having as part of your collection to read the original Bible of the show. It's a really nice thing there. Piece of memorabilia to have. But just in terms of Barnabas, yeah, it's Fred. Fred deserves, I think, all the credit, and also Fred mentioned in an MPI interview, I was playing a man who has to cover up any aspect of his life that really the public can't know about. Now, Joe Caldwell has written a memoir, and this has come up. At least two of the writers at that time on the show were gay men, Ron and Joe. And I think they were imbuing, we know what it's like to live in the shadows. That you couldn't, in 1967, this is 2 years before the Stonewall riots, and it is Pride Month, so that's one of the reasons I'm bringing this up. That if you were a queer audience member, and even me being a young queer audience member, you tapped into that. Barnabas is living the same kind of life that a gay man had to live back in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and even the early 90s to a degree. To me, it's definitely in the subtext of the character. That's just my take on it. I think that is what brought the gay audience in, because particularly at that time you could relate to it. So
Yeah. And you
I mean, read
thank
the
you, Peter.
demographics of the fans. The same with X-Men. The demographic for the X-Men and Dark Shadows almost parallel. Kids of minority, gay kids, all related strongly to those. Because not only were they in the same situation, but these characters were able to sort of not say control their lives, but really take hold of something and be strong.
Yes.
So you're right.
Having gone to the
And
festivals.
Penny, let's get your thoughts.
no, and this
Oh,
is
Penny.
something I love talking about on Terror at Collinwood too, is that Dark Shadows appeals to all of those kids who felt other and who felt like outsiders. And Peter spoke so wonderfully to this in the I did an LGBTQ Pride Month episode of the podcast, and Peter, I kicked it off with Peter's clip because it was wonderful. And it Dark Shadows, all of those characters take eventually do take center stage in the show, and they become the protagonists of the show. And it's no wonder that all of the LGBTQ kids, many of them, connected with Dark Shadows big time, myself included. I'm a trans woman. I never really thought about it at that time, but later in retrospect, I'm like, yeah, I think that probably is part of what connected with me, or at least an aspect of course I love spooky stuff and everything, but there's also that element too as well. So big time, absolutely. And I think the writers were probably infusing some of that into their own writing. I mean, they were very intelligent, articulate guys, and they were infusing some of that into their own writing. Sure. And I'd love to talk to Joe Caldwell, the last surviving writer of Dark Shadows, who's still with us and in his 90s now, and I'd love to chat with him at some point, and hopefully I will get to do that, and have him on the podcast, fingers crossed. But I don't know if he'd be willing to do it, but yeah, I mean, absolutely agree.
Yeah, his memoir you can buy on Amazon. The title just flew out of my head, and it's on Audible. He only
Oh, In the Shadow of the Bridge.
In the Shadow of the Bridge. And he reads the preface, and then another person comes in to read the end, because Joe is in his 90s now. So
95, maybe 96.
yeah, so he reads the preface, but then another studio voice comes in to actually read the book itself. But it's totally worth checking out.
But I will say, somebody called when I played that episode. Somebody called me on it and said, "Well, Dark Shadows isn't just an LGBT show," and I totally agree with that. Dark Shadows is not just Dark Shadows is for anyone who loves Dark Shadows and who connects with it. It's not like icing anybody out. It embraces all of us who love it. But I just find in general most of the people that love it tend to be people that are not like kind of mainstream-ish, I guess, if that makes sense. And it's just kind of people that kind of march to the beat of their own drummer, and I love that about fans of Dark Shadows and Dark Shadows
You said it
itself.
perfectly.
You
said it perfectly. Other than.
Yeah.
But it's that great Liza
others.
Minnelli, quote. I think it was her Pet Shop Boys album, where someone said to her, "So is this album just for the gays?" And she's like, "Yeah, if you happen to be a man in love with a man. If you're a man in love with a woman, it's for the straight people too."
Right.
It's for everybody.
Yep.
If a certain
It's art.
tones into it, then that's good. But yeah, that's beautifully put, Penny. And I said on Penny's podcast, this June, I think it was, come out of the coffin.
Yes, you did say that.
Don't come out of the coffin, no matter what you are. Come out of the coffin.
Yes.
This we're doing from Michael because he requested it, because we know.
First of all, we haven't said this the whole entire broadcast. Today is Michael's birthday.
I was waiting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It is Michael Panzerato's birthday, so happy birthday,
Michael.
Happy birthday, Michael.
Happy birthday, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending it with
For
us.
those of you who have written in support of my birthday, thank you very much. For those of you who hadn't, well, how dare you?
we raise
I love
our
that you channeled Dr. Smith there. That was.
Yeah,
we
that's
raise
right.
our wolfies
Thank you.
and
Yes.
this was requested by Michael because we all know how important this and this are to Dark Shadows. So let's bring up uh, this very important prop that also leads into one of the very most important first, I think, maybe first evers on television, on daytime television.
What an unusual cane.
Oh, it's a family heirloom.
Well, I've never seen one like that before.
There isn't another one like it in the world.
Is that silver?
Gold and silver and very, very old.
Must be very valuable.
Oh, it is. But its main value to me is sentimental. In fact, it's my prized possession. I would rather part with anything in the world before I would part with this cane. It's part of my family tradition.
Well, can I heat up your coffee?
If it isn't too much trouble.
Oh, it's no trouble at all.
I'm glad you admire it. It has quite a history, you know.
Family heirloom.
Yes, dating way back.
Looks like it could have been a weapon originally.
Really? We like to think of it as representing a savage beast tamed and made familiar. A servant almost. Dedicated to assisting us in something so common and civilized as a casual evening stroll.
I've never seen anything quite like it before. A man could develop a real swagger carrying something like that.
Oh, on the contrary, carrying this, one does not need a swagger.
Yeah. Do you mind if I get the feel of it a little?
Not at all.
Nice and heavy. It certainly doesn't look tame to me, but then I guess if you could tame our Willie, you could, a wild wolf wouldn't cause you any problems. Do you know what metal it's made of?
Of course it's...
Looks like pure silver, isn't it?
I beg your pardon.
I just wondered, is it silver?
I'm sorry. Could we discuss this some other time? I just remembered that there's something that I have to do. Please excuse me.
Oh, yes, of course.
Good night, Devlin. I hope we'll see you again soon.
I love that. I love it, baby.
Yes. You know,
Silver and gold and very, very old.
when they did the 2004 pilot, I think it was when PJ Hogan came in. He didn't get the cane. He's like, "That's why are we going to do that? Use that? That's stupid." F you, PJ Hogan. The cane is awesome, and Barnabas needs to have the cane.
Amen.
No matter what version of Dark Shadows, you gotta have the ring. You gotta have the cane. That's
Gotta have
it. Case closed.
I always said that no cape, no cane, no ring, no Barnabas.
Yep.
You know,
Great.
they're essentials. That's bizarre.
Yep. Now I'll ask you. What about the bangs?
Barnabas.
Oh, the
The
Barnabangs.
Barnabangs. The Barnabangs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Barnabas.
I love the bangs. I mean, here you've got a 12-year-old
Great.
Peter going to the hairdresser and showing them a picture of that, and like, can you do that to my hair? And she was just like, "What is wrong with you?"
I love it. I love it. God, I love the bangs. That's the one of the few things I will say that the Johnny Depp movie. I'm glad they kept the bangs because Ben Cross did not keep the bangs. Now that said, I don't know how well the bangs would have worked. I said this I recorded the 1991 DS episode recently, and I was like, somebody Photoshop Ben Cross with the bangs because I want to see what that looks like.
Totally.
But,
Totally.
But Cane's got to be there. The ring's got to be there, and the cape.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Uh,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I did the same thing with my hair. I used to try and get it to do that with the bangs, and I even used to steal my mother's eyeshadow and put it on before. And my mother said, "What are you doing?" You know, she
I
said. I
love
walked in.
it.
She said, "Are you wearing makeup?" I said, "No." She said, "You're going trying to go to school with makeup on to look like that vampire. Go take that
I love it.
off."
I love that.
Because I thought that was so cool. You know, they're so dark and creepy. You know, I thought that was
He
so great.
did,
You
yeah.
know.
He had that dark makeup, and when he was in vampire mode, he was always, had that
Do you guys,
pallor and the
do you
dark.
guys,
He looked like a vampire. Jonathan
Yeah.
Frid looked
Hmm.
cadaverous.
do you guys know the
He
story
did.
about the photo that Jonathan Frid signed to Louis Edmonds?
Oh, I wish we had the
Yes,
picture.
yes, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I don't.
Above his, in the bathroom, yeah,
And then the
signed.
guest room. It's
He
from
signed
1897.
Joan Crawford, yeah.
Yeah, he's got all the eyeliner on. He's got the 1897 with that ermine kind of wool collar that they
Yep.
attach to it, and all that eyeliner.
Dear Louis,
Dear Louis,
love Joan Crawford.
love Joan Crawford.
Yeah, yeah. Vinny Lascalzo.
Oh
Man,
God.
yeah, he did such a great job with the makeup on the show. Another unsung hero of Dark Shadows, I think. Vinny Lascalzo.
Mm.
Yeah.
That
Oh yeah.
picture
And
has Craig Hamrick.
go on.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. We miss Craig Hamrick. That just reminded me.
Oh, Craig, yes.
We were
Yes.
very, very, very close with Craig.
That's the first edition of Barnabas and Company.
Yep.
Yeah, Craig was a dear friend,
Oh.
and yeah, he was cool. Huge fan of the Marilyn Ross paperbacks, which Penny
Yes.
did a fabulous episode
Yes.
of
Thank you.
Tara Collinwood with the Marilyn. No, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that chat, and now I want to download. Joe Escobar did a Night of DS novelization that you can download. Is that out there?
He did, yeah. I put a link to it in the show notes of the
It's in the
of
notes.
the
Okay.
podcast. Yeah. And it's weird that they never did do a novelization paperback library of Night of Dark Shadows. I wish we had gotten one of those, but I'm glad Joe did one. So.
Absolutely. There was something you had just brought up, and now it flew right out of my head. As far as the look goes, it'll come.
Vinny
It'll come.
Lascalzo.
Oh, Vinny Lascalzo. Yeah, Vinny does not get enough credit.
Steve just wrote. I'm going to actually put it up.
Okay.
He just said, "It is so good to hear Vinny remembered too."
Yeah, and I think I don't know how it escaped our clip reel here because it was supposed to be in there. As far as frightening scenes, there is nothing more. This doesn't. It's bittersweet on Vinny's end. When Barnabas finds Carolyn in the coffin room, when old Barnabas finds Carolyn in the coffin
Oh
room,
yeah, Dick Smith
That's-
did that.
yeah. Dick Smith did, but first of all, it's one of the most terrifying scenes in the series.
Absolutely.
It's so
Yes.
brilliantly played and beautifully written. But I know Vinny was so hurt. He apparently was so very hurt that he felt like he was being left out in the cold, not getting to do the old age makeup. I mean, Dick Smith did brilliant.
Yeah, I'm sure Vinny would have done a great job too. I mean, given what he did for Alex Stevens' werewolf makeup, I'm sure he would have done a great old man Barnabas too. But I wonder what Vinny's version of that would have looked like.
And with Laura as the old lady, it's not fair. You can't judge because when she was asked about it, she said, they said, "Was that latex?" And she said, No. Dan didn't want to go for the money. Jonathan got the latex. I got toilet tissue. So it was layers of toilet tissue on her face to create that old lady look.
Yeah. I mean, I thought she looked better than old man Ben Stokes in 1840. I will say, but old Ben. I don't even.
I
Think
was
that
just gonna say, who did Ben?
I don't think it was Vincent
I just was gonna
Lascalzo. I
ask,
think
who
it was
did
one
Ben's
of
makeup?
his acolytes there that was working on the show. I forgot the name of somebody else is getting a credit a lot during that time period, and I can't remember their name, but off the top of my head. But I wonder if it was Vincent Lascalzo who did that, because it doesn't seem like it was. It seems like it was more of a novice kind of a makeup artist, because that makeup on Old Man Ben is strange, very strange.
It doesn't quite. It doesn't quite.
It looks like Halloween makeup.
Yeah. It's strange. It's, don't get me wrong.
Thank God he was a great actor.
Yeah, I loved seeing Old Man Ben. Oh my God, how amazing!
Oh yeah.
I never thought we'd see Ben again. Wow, cool. But yeah, the makeup could have been done a little better with that, but that's okay.
And back to our formidable women. Formidable women. And there's all of the the legend as to how it went from he to she and she to he and back to she, and however it went. You get that doctor that's going to come in and ultimately drive the stake through Barnabas's heart, whether it was Julian or Julius. Thank God it was Julia, none other than Grayson Hall. So bring her in, Miss Hall, ladies and gentlemen. Which where is she? Oh my God, where is she?
It's titled Barnabas.
It should be. There it is. Julia.
Of course, the person I really care most about is your namesake, the original Barnabas Collins.
A rather dull person from all accounts.
All accounts?
Well, from all the accounts that I've come across.
Oh, then perhaps I've uncovered some things that you're not familiar with.
What do you mean?
Exactly what I said. I find Barnabas Collins, well, not you, of course, the original Barnabas Collins, the most fascinating of all the Collinses.
How can you? He went to England when he was very young and died there almost obscurely.
So the story goes.
You mean you've uncovered some new facts?
I told you when I first met you that I knew a great deal about a great many things. Good evening, Barnabas Collins. I've been waiting for you for a long time. A very long time.
I am going to kill you, Miss Hoffman.
Dr. Hoffman. Dr. Hoffman?
Dr. Hoffman?
Yes, I can help you.
Help me?
Yes, I tell you, you don't have to live this life.
You're merely trying to save yourself.
Oh, would I let myself be in this position if I didn't believe I had something of value for you and for me?
But there is no other way of life for me.
There is.
It isn't possible.
It wasn't possible 130 odd years ago, but it is possible now.
How can you be so certain?
Because I've spent my lifetime studying conditions such as yours.
How could you have done this? Have there been others like myself?
No, you're the only one I've encountered. That's why you're so important to me. That's why I need you.
Need me?
From the time I entered medical school, I've been fascinated by the relationship of life to death. I believe that one is a continuance of the other, and that someday they will merge and that life will not terminate. That day is close at hand now that I found you.
Grayson. Woohoo!
I've said it before and I'll say it again. She was the bravest character in that series. Nobody backed her down. Absolutely nobody backed her down.
Yeah, she went head to head with everybody. She went head to head with everybody. I love that scene.
Yes.
I love it. I love it so much better than I know. In a movie you've got to shorten things, so I get why in House of Dark Shadows it's so truncated. But I much prefer all of the tee up that we get on the television series. Her posing as the historian and their initial meeting and him taking her back to the old house. I, I just, I love that whole tee up.
Really
I
quickly,
totally agree.
really quickly, we
Yeah.
recognize that YouTube is flagging many of these clips. We will, by this time tomorrow, have the complete uploaded version uploaded to YouTube without the interruptions. Just so you know, we are aware of it. We're getting comment after comment.
Yes, if you're watching on YouTube, it does automatically flag it, but it's never in the replay, and it doesn't happen if you're watching on Facebook, guys. So if you want to tune in on Facebook, that's how you can watch without interruption. Otherwise, it comes up real time, but then it's gone by the time it's uploaded on YouTube. So I meant to say that at the top of the show. I apologize. Penny, your thoughts?
I was just going to say the makeup artist I was trying to think of before, I think his name was Dennis Eger, Eger. He was also, I think he was one of the students of Vincent Lascazzo. But this was one of the clips I picked when Peter was asking me about favorite clips from the show or memorable clips. And this clip just shows you that Dr. Julia Hoffman, she's a badass. Like she is such a badass. Like she goes face to face with Barnabas Collins, with a vampire. She knows he's a vampire and she sets him up. She's brilliant. She tricks him, and then she knows he's dangerous and tells him, I can help you. I can help you not be the way you are. And I love Dr. Julia Hoffman. And later on, she does the same. She's human. Dr. Julia Hoffman is a human being, and she goes face to face with Barnabas, Cassandra / Angelique, Nicholas Blair. I mean, she's got Julia. She's awesome. She's just awesome. And she's smart. What a great character. And this clip illustrates that she's on that level with all of these supernatural players. She's right on that level, and that's why she becomes Barnabas. Later, it's great. It's cool to see Julia as this sort of morally ambiguous character at first. Like Julia's kind of villainous, but she's not at the villainous level of Barnabas in terms of murder and stuff. Like she's like, whoa, that's a step too far. But it's great to see their relationship develop as they become allies in the show. And I would love to imagine the scenario, as we saw, as the show went on, that they did develop this kind of Holmes and Watson kind of thing that happened between the two of them, this bond. And it would have been cool to see that continue as they went on more supernatural adventures together. Wow, great. Grayson, oh my God. Incredible addition to Dark Shadows. Pivotal character in the show.
One of the big guns.
I was going to say, too, how you're coming in an era too, and again, credit to the writers, where the sidekick, thanks to, and I love these movies, but the Wallace Bruce, was his name Wallace Bruce, the portrayal of Watson in the Basil Rathbone films.
Was
Nigel Bruce. If you read the stories, Watson was not an equal to Holmes, but he was a doctor. He was served in the military. He was not a stupid man. He was always kind of given later in film a sort of much slower than Holmes. And a lot of the sidekicks were that way. When you watch the Westerns, the sidekick was always falling over himself. And Julia was a sidekick equal to, if not superior, to Barnabas in a lot of ways intellectually.
Yes.
And like you said, she struck a witch. In that scene that we just played, before the bedroom, she is pretty much goading him into an attack. And for the audience, what a tension. Like when is he going to kill her right now? Is he going to kill her later on? She was written differently than even most sidekicks, and particularly, and I don't mean this, the female characters in other series. She was way above. Lost in Space is my baby, but way above how Maureen Robinson, who was supposed to be a biochemist, was played. Yeah. And even some of the female characters on Star Trek, which is the elevated series, were just skirts. So Julia was like groundbreaking, I think.
Totally. Absolutely. and again, get a lot of these strong women, and also going back to our gay men love Grayson Hall, and because she falls into that Roz Russell, B. Arthur, that striking those cobra-like cheek with that wonderful husky voice. And she just falls into that. This pisses a lot of people off, but it's true. She is
You're staying away from saying it. The face that launched 1,000 drag queens is what we always say. Because she's so striking.
Well, no, she had that. But there was something slightly, especially early on, that androgynous with that severe haircut. There was something androgynous about Grayson. But even Sam Hall said that. I mean, he said that with the looping for Night of Dark Shadows, apparently his comment was, "Oh, I think it should be a man." That's what I was told.
And
yeah,
there
was Daryl Schaefer. I think he was one of the people in contention. I think to do the looping. I don't know if that ever happened. I think it's at this point they probably would use AI probably to do Carlotta Dark Shadows. But I mean, Grayson Hall's voice was so unique. I know when I interviewed Darren, he talked about Private Benjamin Clue. What's that actress's name?
Eileen Brennan.
Eileen Brennan.
But she had passed away. But she would have been good. But yeah, Grayson. My God. I mean, all that said, I know there's a big contingent of Dark Shadows fans that feel that Barnabas and Julia should be together. I don't agree with that. I don't think Barnabas would. I think Julia deserves better than Barnabas. I love Barnabas Const, my favorite fictional character of all time. But Barnabas is messed up, man. Like Barnabas got some coffin-sized baggage, I just don't think that's going to work. Julia's awesome. I like maybe Julia and Professor Stokes or something, but Barnabas, I don't know. I don't think that would.
It's funny you say that, where you were just comparing Barnabas and Julia to Holmes and Watson. So we've got to we've got the art together, but I had come up with a fake TV Guide ad for a new series from Dan Curtis, Shadows of the Night, that would have starred Thayer and Grayson doing paranormal research all throughout New England.
Brilliant.
I love that. Oh my God,
Brilliant.
I would sign me up.
Oh.
I would love that.
That was.
Can I ask a question of Penny?
Penny.
Okay, weigh in. Did Stokes know or did Stokes not know?
Now,
ultimately, this Barnabas secret.
Okay, that's a very interesting question, because Professor Stokes is an occult scholar. He's brilliant. He is the Van Helsing of Dark Shadows. I mean, he is a sage occult scholar who knows all about this stuff. Early on, he's clearly hinting about knowing something's up. So he would know. But the one thing that kind of sticks out to me is in 1995, in Carolyn's diary, when it talks about Barnabas, something up to the effect of Barnabas not being out during the day, or Stokes still doesn't seem to acknowledge that he knows about it. So it's a tough thing that one is tough, because I think he should know.
Yeah.
He should know. He's smart enough to figure it out. Maybe when he saw Barnabas operating in the daytime after Dr. Lang's experiment, he said, "Oh, I thought I was on the right track here, but either something changed or I was wrong." Now, I don't think Stokes would ever say, "I was wrong." So he probably figured things have changed here. I think he had an inkling, at least. He at least had an inkling about it. Whether he fully put the pieces together, I don't know.
Yeah.
This
is a chapter in a book I intend to finish
he wouldn't have
writing.
been cool with it. He would have been like, "Wow, you kidnapped an innocent
like in
woman
the
and
movie."
locked her up."
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah. That's
Yeah.
right.
and
You
you
and Ed do.
murdered several people. Like, I don't know if Professor Stokes' moral code, I think his moral compass, I don't think would have been okay with that, and we may have ended up seeing something like what we saw in House of Dark Shadows, which I would not have wanted to see in the series. So perhaps it's best that Stokes was
No.
kind of
Yeah.
kept out of the loop there. But I think he may have had an inkling. He probably did figure it out and saw Barnabas operating during the day and said, "All right, it's cool. They figured something out and he's okay now. So, but I'm keeping an eye on this situation."
Yeah,
Right.
that's a
Right.
great, yeah.
That's great. Yeah. That's perfect.
But I would have loved that. I would have loved to have seen Grayson and Thayer team up, and maybe they could have gone back to Collinsport occasionally. It struck me randomly one night. Well, what if because Darkness of Blasden didn't work out, which I felt was, I enjoy it, but I think it's a little slow. It's not quite, it doesn't grab me in the way Dark Shadow does. But I would have liked to have seen Grayson and Thayer teaming up. Now, obviously,
Oh, totally.
Fred,
Yes.
Barnabas has got, Julia comes along, and I think maybe one of the reasons that she's a thorn in his side is he's already had one really strong woman that he's had to deal with in his life, and he thinks she's gone and out of the picture, because behind every great vampire, there's got to be an even greater witch. So, do we have that? Actually, you know what, John? Let's go though to because Penny and I had talked about that. Oh my God, where is it? Shoot.
This is riveting podcast here.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. It's hard for John to see the.
These are trifocals in my defense. Okay, here we go.
What were you about to do to me?
Barnabas, please let go of me.
Where are we? I asked you where we are.
She was speaking the truth. He's come back from the dead.
Answer me.
We are in Colin's mausoleum.
Mausoleum? Why was I in this coffin? What have you done to me?
Barnabas, I want to get away from this place.
Not until you tell me where we are and what has happened to me.
Let's go back to the old house and I'll tell you there.
No, you will tell me now, here.
Barnabas, please, I can't.
Perhaps you won't have to tell me. I remember being in bed, delirious with fever. I was afraid I would die. That's what's happened to me, isn't it? I was in that coffin because I was dead. Wasn't I? Wasn't I? The curse. You set a curse on me. You said I would live with it through all eternity.
Yes.
Then the bat came into the room. It came straight for my throat. You knew I was going to die and then come back to life again, didn't you?
I tried to prevent your death, Barnabas. I did everything that I could.
But you failed.
Yes.
And having failed, you came here to try to prevent me from returning.
You said that anyone who loved me would die.
I tried to lift the curse, Barnabas. I did everything in my power.
But you could not.
No.
So the curse is with me yet and will remain with me. Now I know why you tried to prevent me from coming back to life.
You do?
Of course. You knew you would be the first victim of your own curse.
No, that's not true.
Of course it is, Angelique. Or were you always lying to me when you told me how much you loved me?
No, Barnabas. I do love you.
Then, according to the curse, you must die.
No, Barnabas, please.
Yes, my dear Angelique.
No!
All your powers of witchcraft will not save you now.
Great scene. Penny, weigh in, Penny.
There's a picture of Peter and Lamar from 1997.
That was at the Dracula
Oh my
Centennial.
goodness! Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that
that's
was at the Dracula
great.
Centennial.
That being said, we lost Michael.
He had to use the powder room.
Oh,
He'll be
okay.
right back. He'll be right back. Penny, weigh in.
To quote the Penguin in Batman Returns, tragic irony or poetic justice? You tell me. It's like, yep, that's, I absolutely, that scene is amazing. And when people say, Dark Shadows is campy, tongue in cheek, yes, right there, that was a pretty intense scene, and I love Lara Parker. It's just great how the show just kept escalating in that way, because Barnabas was bad, but then they bring in Angelique, and wow, she's worse than Barnabas, and you find out how Barnabas became a vampire, that whole backstory, which was a huge first in pop culture, in horror, the horror genre. You get a little bit of that in Varney the Vampire, but this is just a full-blown backstory for a vampire, and Angelique is the catalyst for that, and becomes the primary antagonist for Barnabas and for the series, for both. That whole scene where I love, where she's trying to undo the curse after she survives the gunshot. She's like, oh, what did I do? Like, he's going to do worse things than even I would wish on anyone, she tells Ben. And she's trying to undo that whole curse, and she can't do it. She can't remove the curse, and he rises as a vampire, and she's the first victim of the curse. Though anyone who loves you will die. And yep, that's what happens. Of course, she comes back more powerful and vindictive than ever. But what a wonderful scene between two great actors, two great characters, two iconic characters. That's Dark Shadows right there. I mean, just chills.
Great writing, great acting. The two of them just play the scene to the hilt, and I just love the way he turns on her. That moment where it's like, somebody's gonna get it.
Yeah. It's like you're waiting through 1795. It's like it's one tragedy after another, and it's like Angelique was the catalyst for all of this, and she gets her just desserts here. Of course, she continues to could cause a lot of problems later on, even after death. But wow, such a powerful scene, great scene, awesome, iconic.
And Laura didn't see it coming. She was like, all of a sudden she's like, it was my first professional job, and I got a charge account at Saks, and I thought this is it, and all of a sudden she died, and I thought, oh no, what am I gonna do? But the fan mail came pouring in, and that was it. It was just like, we can't get rid of her. Same thing happened with Grayson. She was supposed to be upended into a vat of acid.
Yes, yeah.
Joe Caldwell had actually written that out, I guess maybe not in script form, but in the synopsis of how she would die. And it made sense, because Barnabas always said, there won't be any trace. There'll be no trace that she was ever here, and he was going to throw her into a vat of acid. So,
no, I'd always heard about that, but does that synopsis exist anywhere?
I would bet maybe in Joel's papers, if he's donated them to a college. So many writers do. I would love to know
just to
It's
see
kind
what
of
would have been. Yeah.
it's kind of like Night of Dark Shadows. I mean, Craig talks about it in here. I know they've been unable to locate it, but so the original working title is Curse of Dark Shadows, which makes sense, and no one's been able to find the zine. It was the Grayson zine. And allegedly, Grayson was asked the question, and she said it was supposed to be about the curse. It was going to be about Angelique and Josette and Barnabas. And then when
Yes.
Jonathan pulled out, but nobody can find either the script or the synopsis. I just wish they could find the zine because she apparently did say it that that was the plot.
Yeah, and I had heard about that too. That the original premise for Curse of Dark Shadows was going to be in the past, and Angelique putting the curse on Barnabas, the backstory of Barnabas, and it totally makes sense. And then Frid didn't want to do it. Of course, there was a big to do between Jonathan Frid and Dan Curtis, and ultimately we got Night of Dark Shadows, which was cool. But I would love to see some, at least if we could find some little synopsis of what they had in mind, it would have been cool.
What was the baby doll?
His papers exist at the University of Delaware. It's part of a Writers Guild project, so we should look into that.
There we go. So,
Yeah.
I would love to. I would love to know if, what that was the idea for her to get rid of her. Of course, Jonathan, we all know. I mean, he really had a lot on his shoulders. I was talking about this on one of the boards. When you're doing 5 shows a week, which he really must have been doing at that point, and the idea of, Dan, you got to bring in another spook to take some of the weight off of me here. And I have to say, I've never been a Frankenstein fan. For those of you who are, I think it's great. To me, the Addams storyline just goes on and on and on, and it does not. What the saving grace for the Addams storyline for me is Marie as Eve. I think she makes that storyline work because she's so deliciously evil, and the way she plays off of Nicholas. But the Addams storyline just didn't do it for me. And then they found their matinee idol. They didn't let him talk for weeks and weeks and weeks. But Penny, being a guest host, pointed out one of the most iconic moments, which I had totally forgotten about. And do we have that clip?
What's it called?
Oh, God. Please forgive me for doubting you.
Oh, Roger.
I never thought we would be forced to leave this house.
I don't know what to do about anything. I must turn out the light.
I'll put the bags in the car. Mr. Collins, tomorrow we'll make an expedition to pick up your things.
How quiet it is now.
I could almost believe we were alone.
We'll be back. Have no doubt of that.
You're gonna have somebody haunt your house, man. David Selby is the ghost you
Yes.
want haunting your
You know
house.
what? Hey,
And
this is my dog, Crispy. Wait, hold on. I don't know if it's showing on the camera here. This is my dog, Crispy.
Aww.
And
Oh my
anytime I
God.
leave the house, she's the bastard daughter of 1,000 dogs. And anytime I leave the house, I say, "I'll be back. Have no doubt of that."
That's great.
So I love that scene. I watched that first on Channel 58 in syndication. My goodness, that stuck with me. Is David Selby sexy? Yes. Do I have nightmares still about Quentin? Yes. And Barnabas too. I mean, what an eerie, spooky scene. There is nobody alive in Collinwood at that point, and this theme, this music from the past that we've heard associated with Quentin fills the house, and there he is triumphantly, this ghost, the specter who has taken over our beloved Collinwood. Wow, it's just such a powerful, striking moment, and that one always stuck with me. When I first saw that, I was stunned. I mean, it was so good. Iconic moment for me.
Yeah.
And we should mention what a gentleman in real life David Selby is.
Sweet.
Yes.
What he, as good looking as he is as kind as he is. I've never known
Yeah.
him to walk away from a fan.
Yeah, beautiful inside and out. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yes.
And
Agree.
it worked.
100.
It worked. I mean, just in terms of, because I think they were hoping Adam was going to be that new spook, and it just didn't quite go over.
I really
And-
like Adam. I do like Adam. I wish
You
he
do.
had gotten a better closing to his storyline, but especially early Adam, when he falls under the sway of Nicholas Blair, he becomes a real monster. He becomes a jerk. But I do like Adam. But I mean, there's no comparison. Quentin is the next big pop culture icon that comes out of Dark Shadows. He's huge, and for good reason. He was great.
I like Adam because we get Eve.
Yes, because
I love Eve. Oh my goodness, I love Eve too.
Because
Yeah,
we get
yeah,
Eve.
yeah, yeah.
We would not
Well, and
have
of course,
Eve.
he disappeared because he asked for a raise. He said
Yes,
that.
yeah. You don't ask Dan Curtis for more money.
That's it. Professor Stokes. What did he say? Professor Stokes said, "Adam, go in the closet." I went in the
Yeah.
closet. Where did I go?
No, I always say this on the podcast. I like to, if you've ever seen, I had John Logan on the podcast, the creator of the Penny Dreadful series, and he's, Tony Award-winning writer, Oscar-nominated screenwriter, and he wrote the Penny Dreadful series. And his depiction of the Frankenstein monster, who comes back after the events of the Frankenstein novel, that is what I imagine Adam would become. Not Adam gets his scars removed and he's okay now. No, Adam becomes, if he follows the trajectory of the Frankenstein monster in the novel, he becomes increasingly intelligent, but also increasingly venomous
Sure.
about what happened to him. And as much as I know a lot of fans don't like Adam, but there are a lot of elements of Barnabas in Adam. He's impulsive, he's driven by this obsession with Carolyn. There are a lot of sensitive. I mean, there are a lot of ironic in many ways. There are a lot of elements of Barnabas in Adam. I just don't think they have the finesse that Fred clearly. But I would like to come back. It's a shame that they never kind of came around. They referenced Adam later in Parallel Time, the whole Roxanne thing, but it would have been interesting to see. I know Sam Hall wrote that article. Consider that canon. To read that article, it's an interesting idea. But I'd like to see if they're ever doing Dark Shadows or whatever. What happened?
Well, it's funny because with David, I mean, he was, aside from being a matinee idol, having those matinee idol looks.
Yes.
Initially, I remember the first time I watched 1897, I was like, Quentin is a douchebag, man. He is just.
Yes.
He is such
Yes,
a
yeah.
douchebag. And then slowly you're like, I mean, he's sexy and he's cute, and you kind of feel bad for the guy because he's the black sheep. And he goes down that Barnabas kind of rabbit hole. So you come around and he wins you over. I mean, if the looks don't get you, there's a vulnerability there that does come through. So he ultimately, which I think they tried with Jeb Hawks, and it didn't quite work for me as well as it did with Quentin. They didn't quite jive with me because Jeb is another one of those characters that I'm like, oh my god, I hate this guy. I just
Insufferable pig.
Oh yes.
oh my god, he's terrible. Yeah, and Alex. I mean, how many times have I said on boards with Alex? It's like now you know why some animals eat their young. He's terrible. He is so awful. Oh my god, I can't stand. I love Michael Maitland. I love Michael Maitland because he was a really
great, yeah.
strong actor. He was a really strong actor. But
Agreed.
and poor Jim. I mean, you just had Jim and Valerie on. Jim didn't get with Gerard. He didn't get that same turn that David got with Quentin. We didn't get to really see, that change. He really was just kind of a bastard.
He was, yeah. Quentin, you finally, I mean, when when the werewolf curse befalls him, and that's when, and he realizes he's tearing people to shreds during the full moon and murdering innocent people as a werewolf, then we start to see Quentin kind of realize what he's doing and what kind of person he is, and there is the change. And this always happens in Dark Shadows with every villain that's introduced into Dark Shadows. There's that change where we start to see this more anti-hero aspect come out, and it's really cool, and it works very well with Quentin. But I agree with Gerard. He becomes possessed by the head of Judah Zachary, by this warlock, and we get one glimmer of that when he finally dies there, and he says, "I wasn't myself," or something like that, and but he was a scoundrel. You don't really get to see that development with Gerard, sadly. Although I loved James Storm as Gerard, but yeah, I agree. But Quentin, like pop culture icon, Quentin Collins. I mean, he's one of the biggies.
He came to Baltimore. David Selby was in Baltimore, and they had to helicopter him out.
Wow.
The mob was so massive to go see him. He was on some major Pratt Street or Charles Street or something, and he had to be helicoptered out of Baltimore. My mother did remember
for one of those press junkets during Dark Shadows.
Wow.
Yeah, he was here for a parade. We used to have either an American Day parade or some parade, and they would always have celebrities, and he was at one of them. And when he came, there's no getting out. He had to be helicoptered out by so it's typical Baltimore stuff.
Yeah, I know he did.
So yeah, he was major.
I asked him. He's been on my podcast a few times. He's wonderful, so nice. And I did ask him. I said, "Did Jonathan Frid warn you about how those parades would be?" And he was like, "No, not at all."
So it was the I Am an American Day parade. It was September 14th, 1969. They expected 75,000 people. 225,000 people showed up, and he literally had to be helicoptered out of the event. Wow.
Yeah, he would get mobbed. They both would. They both would get mobbed like crazy. I mean, it really was, like Joan Bennett said, it was like being a Beatle. They really treated them like they were the Beatles.
They actually knocked over all of the police motorcycles to get close to him. Yeah.
What I thought was sweet in Catherine's book, Return to Collinwood.
Only in Baltimore.
And the Bronx.
In Return to Collinwood, where they went to film the Depp film, when they went to do their cameo. I guess I'm slightly paraphrasing here, but I think Jonathan turned to him at one moment and said, I was always just a little bit jealous of you.
Yeah.
But he never showed it. I mean, according to David, right? David said we never felt it on the show itself. But I always wondered throughout the years, I'm like, I wonder if Jonathan was ever jealous of him to a degree, because he took off like gangbusters, and that moment in England where he's like, I was always just a little bit jealous of you.
Yeah.
As,
Yeah.
as as far as you just mentioned it, Penny, and I know yeah, well, we could talk for hours, and I hope you'll come back.
Please,
I
you
hope
have
you'll
to.
come back.
Oh my goodness, I would love to, and I'd love to at some point also have you guys on Terror at Collinwood to talk about
Absolutely.
your show and Dark Shadows in general. At some point, we have to make that happen too.
Love that. Would love that. Now you had Mark B. Perry
You
on.
realize I'm going to redo the logo to be Dark Shadows for when this happens again. Just so you know. I love it. Oh, God.
You had Mark B. Perry on your show, and we're all still on pins and needles about, Dark Shadow's reincarnation, and is it going to happen? Are they still shopping it around? What impressed me the most about Mark, in talking to you, was that he's such a staunch fan of the show, and when he said,
Yes.
I want the sets to look like what we know. I want Collinwood to look, they will build them better and we'll make them bigger, but Collinwood will be Collinwood. The old house will be the old house. We'll use the music. We'll reinvent the theme, and we'll go down that. That's what gave me hope. I was like, oh my God, yes, we don't want it. We don't want it totally reimagined. Don't give it. You got to get the fans, and he seems to want to get the core fans in, which I loved hearing him say that on your show.
Yeah, Mark B. Perry is he's a true blue fan. I mean, he's like us. He loves Dark Shadows. He loved it. He's loved it since childhood. I mean, he held up his scrapbook. He's he's a big fan of the show, and he is a great writer. The Wonder Years, Party of Five. He's done so many cool things. And I would love to, whatever happens with any new Dark Shadows. I hope Mark is there, in some capacity, and hope it happens. I wish the best for it, and I hope if Mark is involved, it's going to be true to the spirit of Dark Shadows. I am 100% sure of that. He loves Dark Shadows. I mean, I guess I always have some trepidation with anything new.
Sure.
With Dark Shadows or anything that I love, I mean, when Tim Burton and Johnny Depp were saying they for years that they love Dark Shadows, and we saw what we got. Now I know there are fans of the movie.
Yes.
Hey, more power to you. I've gotten people unsubscribing from my podcast because I've been critical of the film. Oh yes, yeah. People have been gotten angry. I'm pretty nice about my criticism of the film. I talk about what I like, what I didn't like.
I love the prologue. That's it.
What's that?
The prologue is what I love. The beginning of the movie.
It is good.
Yeah.
That part of it is good. And I love that they made an effort to make Collinwood look like Seaview Terrace almost. They had that vibe, that look to it, the outside of it. Tim Burton is visually very compelling, but he was a fan of Dark Shadows as a kid. Johnny Depp always wanted to play Barnabas Collins, and Seth Grant. I did a 2-part episode on the John August version of the script, if anybody has ever heard that, where it's not a comedic Dark Shadows. There were comedic moments, and Seth Graham Smith took all of those bad jokes about birthing whatever it was, I don't remember, Carolyn mewing like a kitten when she touches herself and all this kind of garbage that he worked into his script, and it was the comedic Dark Shadows. So yes, I went into that and I was like, oh my God, Tim Burton's doing a new Dark Shadows, and I went to watch it and I just felt sad after I left the theater. So yeah, I have some trepidation of any new Dark Shadows. But that said, somebody like Mark B. Perry, who's a huge fan of the original show and gets it, I'm not worried as worried. I'm more worried about like outside factors like networks or streaming channels that might want to put their 2 cents in. Because nowadays, all these channels, as you know, I mean, you guys know, I mean, they're always putting, oh, let's do this. We feel it would be better if we did this. Like Mark, when I had him on the podcast, he talked about how WB wanted to make the Blue Whale like a hipster bar.
Yeah.
And it's like Blue Whale's a fisherman's tavern that it's the only place in town to go hang out, and everybody goes there. it hasn't changed much since the old days. For centuries, it's been like how it looks now, except they have a jukebox now that plays the same music. So it's not a hipster tavern. Yeah, it's not a hipster place. So I worry about outside factors. Now, Mark, of course, isn't the only person who is a fan of Dark Shadows that loves Dark Shadows. There are other. Mark isn't the only one I'm sure, that is trying to get their version of Dark Shadows out there. We may see other takes on Dark Shadows. I like when Peter and I Peter brought up before the show started, was Dark Shadows. Dark Shadows is. I don't think it's ever going to die. I think people will always try to bring Dark Shadows. It was hugely successful first time, as Michael pointed out, that parade with David Selby. My God, I mean, Dark Shadow, and I try to tell some of my younger friends that aren't aware of it, and it's like Dark Shadows was huge. It had a meteoric impact on our fantasy sci-fi culture. Not be the same as it is now. If you want from Dark Shadows, they're always going to try to go back to Dark Shadows. Some people get it, some people. I think if the right person is in charge of Dark Shadows, and stick with their guns, it's going to be good. But we'll see.
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind, Michael. We've talked about this. I wouldn't mind if they did a reboot of the show. I'd love to see a sequel. Totally on board with that. I wouldn't mind a reboot, but here's my caveat, and it's one of the reasons, and they've held it over so long. But you're never going to top the 1979 series. But now we have the Salem's Lot movie finally getting released in October. I think it's going to go direct to streaming. But what I will give them credit was, and I was praying that they're keeping it set in 1975. So right out the gate, they got points with me for that. It's a period piece. These things work better when they're set in a more naive and innocent time. The night, and John, you were there for this, we were having dinner with Marie Wallace at Coogan's, may it rest in peace, all the way uptown, and we finished our dinner. We were going to take a little break before dessert. It gave us permission to look at our phones, and literally it came in, CW, green lights, possible new Dark Shadows. I was like, I'm having dinner with Marie Wallace, and this comes in and a notification. So we started talking. It was crazy. It was crazy. And
Marie is watching, by the way. We love you, Marie.
We love you, Marie.
Marie, hi.
I said to Marie, I told her this, and she said, well, you know, it's not going to be anything like our show, Peter. I said, let me throw this at you. This is my idea. Don't anyone tell me that nostalgia doesn't work, because let me click them off for you. Mad Men, Mrs. Maisel, down the line, these are these shows that are being done that are set in the 50s and 60s. Mad Men even referenced Dark Shadows in it. Someone was supposed to audition for Dark Shadows on Mad Men.
Yeah, but they made a negative comment about it.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. They did make a negative comment. I think it needs to be set in 1966. You can take 2 weeks of Dark Shadows and truncate them into a 1-hour episode. You can make it a little sexier. That's where the WB was going. We did see Willie and his girlfriend and Joe and Carolyn getting a little, naughty with each other. But I think it needs to be set in 1966 because it's going to work better if it's set in a faraway time. I don't think setting it in 2024, a sequel, yes. But if you're going to do a reboot, go back. And maybe you can put a new spin on some of the stories. Maybe you can correct some of the things that you felt the writers, I would have done it that way. I wouldn't have done it. And Marie's response was, I agree with you, because when we did the show, we went back into the past and everyone loved the costume aspect of it. The styles were the styles. When you came along, now those styles were costumes. And it was a costume piece within a costume piece. So that's my idea, is if you're going to reboot it, set it in 1966. That would just be my wish for a reboot if they were to do a reboot.
Do you feel that they should retell the story with Barnabas, Roger, Elizabeth, Carolyn, David, Vicky, Maggie, etc., or do you think they should have those characters but continue it like into 1972 kind of a thing? Or
you mean for a sequel or a reboot?
Either or. Like, even if it's a sequel, should it continue from where the original series left off, or if it's a sequel, should it be like now?
Well, I know what Mark is going for is now, so I'm cool with that just because
Yeah.
of his ideas on it. So I like that. I wouldn't mind picking up where the show left off, but now you've got to really find people that. Okay, so we talked about retro casting or who would you want. My main pick for Julia Hoffman has and always will be Mr. Perry. If you're listening, I just think that Barnabas and Julia have to be as we know them. I know you want young blood in there, but I don't want to see a 22-year-old hunky Barnabas.
Agree.
Okay.
Agree.
Okay.
100%.
So my first pick, and he's a little off kilter for some people because of the bone structure, and sometimes when he raises his eyebrows, I've said Hugh Laurie for Barnabas.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay.
He would
I
be
like that casting.
He would be my pick for someone to represent Jonathan.
Mhm.
For Julia, Judy Davis.
Or
Interesting. Okay.
Or
Yeah, I could.
Allison Janney.
Oh, you said
Okay.
Allison Janney. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with Judy Davis because she's got that same voice. She's got that way of raising her chin up and catching the light with her cheekbones the way Grayson did. So
The problem is we've just mentioned 3 60-year-old actors.
I
But
think
if-
I think you I
Go
think
ahead,
you
Pat.
need I think you need I agree. I think you need more mature seasoned actors who have a background in theater to really capture the feel of Dark Shadows. They were all theater actors, and they were larger than life, and they were directed by people like Leela Swift and Henry Cavill and John Sidwick to be larger than life.
Yeah.
You need that type of actor who has people who have backgrounds in classical theater. I think that's an important component. Now, as for setting it, if you're going to set it in the present, I like what Mark B. Perry said, and that's one thing. They're one of the few things I liked about the WB series. Cell phones don't work in Collinsport. There's no signal, and you know what? People are like, oh well, now we have cell phones. I was in Vermont for the eclipse, for the full eclipse. I was in a small town in Vermont. Zero cell service in that town. There are places where you don't get cell service, and of course, in Collinsport, there's a supernatural aura about the place. It's a dark brigadoon, as Jonathan Fritz said. It's much like many Gothic tales that are kind of set in this remote place. There's no cell service. Too bad. You can't use your cell. You can't. Maybe you can take a picture on your phone. That's about it. And Mark kind of reinforced that when I interviewed him. He talked about that, and I would hope that if Mark or anyone else who does Dark Shadows kind of keeps that sort of thing in mind. I think you have to look at Gothic literature, classic Gothic films, because that's what Darren Curtis loved and infused into that, and you have to put that whole vibe into the show. Of course, Dark Shadows subverted a lot of that by making the monsters the protagonists of the show, but a lot of the trappings of the Gothic were part of Dark Shadows. That's why I always say, like, I wish Guillermo del Toro had gotten a shot at Dark Shadows instead of Tim Burton, because I think Guillermo del Toro would have done something really special with Dark Shadows, and he loves Gothic literature, and I think he would have gotten the whole vibe of it. But we'll see. Whoever takes on the mantle of any new Dark Shadows, I really hope that they're going to stick to their guns and push back against any networks or whatever that say, oh, we gotta appeal to this demographic. Screw the demographic. Stay true to the root of what it is.
Let me ask you this, Penny, because there is a rumor on several boards, I saw it as early as 10 minutes before this broadcast, that at the Remembrance Weekend they're going to make an announcement about a reboot. I do not believe that's going to happen. I don't believe it's the right venue for it. Yes, there'd be 3,500 people present, because that's how many tickets were sold. Which, by the way, to what we talked about earlier, the fact that this show can get 3,500 fans to an event, many of whom are traveling from all around the country.
A holiday weekend.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much. A holiday weekend. And that they've added 800 more seats so they can have almost 4,000 people for Laura's event. So I think that that's just amazing. But I don't believe
It
there
is.
can be an announcement about a reboot. You, more than us, have a pulse. I think you would have heard about this by now.
I don't think that we would hear anything on the Friday because I think that would be very inappropriate, as that is the celebration of life for your friend and the iconic, wonderful Lamar Ricky Hawkins, aka Lara Parker. I don't think Friday. I hope Friday is kept as a memorial event, as it should be, a celebration of life. Saturday, however, is Jonathan Fritz's centenary, and my understanding is that that's going to be more festival-like, more
Yeah.
a little bit more like that. There are going to be vendors Saturday. There's going to be some stuff going on, signings by actors, etc. I would think if anything is going to be announced, the Saturday would be the day to do it.
Interesting.
I have not heard anything official. Like you, I've only heard rumors that something might be announced on that weekend. But if it's going to happen, I would think it would be on the Saturday. But I don't know either. I have no idea. So I hope something is announced on Saturday. But I hope they do save it for Saturday and don't do it Friday because I don't think Friday is the appropriate place.
Yeah, it would be out of place. It would be out of place.
We
Yep.
should absolutely
Yep.
schedule the next four of us for some time after the remembrance because I would love to get
Oh yeah,
because you're the only one of the four of us going.
we were so close, and then with John's job, it just didn't work out. So I'm
Yeah.
heartbroken that we're not going to be there to celebrate
Sorry that
Lamar.
Michael, you're not going either.
No, I wanted to, but too much going on at the homestead. I've never been to any.
I've been to
So I
two
wanted to at least hit this
festivals. I
one.
went to two festivals. I wish I'd gone to more, but
Which one did you go to, Penny?
I went to, I think it was 2006 and 2007, I want to say it was. So I went 2 years in a row, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I'd been involved in the fandom and subscribing to the zines and even writing for the zines for years, but I was actually very introverted, as I know you can't shut me up, but back then I was I was very introverted, and I was
Yeah.
like kind of the idea of going to like New York or any convention by myself was daunting. My uncle certainly wouldn't have gone. So but yeah, I finally did get to go in 2006, 2007. I met some great fans there, like Leaf Shimmer, who's been posting comments, and Amanda Desiree. I know she's going to the remembrance event. Fran, aka Midnight from the Dark Shadows forums. She's really
Sure.
cool. Met several fans when I went, and it was fun. The 2 years I did go. I wish I had gone more though.
Yeah, I started in 1990, and then I went sporadically, and then almost every year up until about 2009, and they were fun. I missed them.
My first
Me
festival
too.
was my first festival was 2003.
2003.
2003, the year. Yep.
I hope I know. Like the last festival was 2016, which I tried to go to, and I got the Sazy the letter back in the mail saying it was sold out. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? But in 2 years, it's going to be the 60th anniversary of Dark Shadows. I mean, can you believe it? 60 years. But I really hope they do something. They have to do something for the 60th anniversary. What a shame it would be if they wouldn't. So, Jim Pearson, please do something. If you don't, then somebody else has to do it.
Yeah, yeah, and they don't have to be big falderals. I mean, I look at this year is the 50th anniversary of Little House on the Prairie, another show that I grew up with. Catherine Lee Scott was on it. She actually published a book about Michael Landon right after he died. But there's been I think 12 events this year, and not everybody can go to them. Meaning the stars, they pick and choose, where they go. But they went to Simi Valley a few weeks ago, where the show was shot, and it was 18,000 people.
Yep.
Wow,
Showed up.
18,000. Wow.
Yeah.
18,000, and no signs of stopping. So I hope that there'll be some more events that happen maybe sporadically around the country, and that because we all need to band together It's fun to get together like we're doing now, talking. I mean, the events were always fun, but then when the events were over, we'd sit around in the bar or in the restaurant. We would just jabber the way we are now about our favorite storylines and all that stuff. So
I would get my lap dances from Denise Nickerson.
you got a lap dance
Oh
from
my
Denise
God.
Nickerson.
Oh my
And
goodness.
we have photo proof.
And we have photographic evidence of it.
Wow.
Yes.
You
Yes.
need to show that.
Yeah, we have that. Yeah.
Um, the thing I love too recently is that we had all the fanzines back in the day, but they're not. We have daytime. Stuart Manning does the daytime Gothic, but he did one. He's going to do a second one. I don't know if he's going to do more than that. But the podcasts are proliferating. You guys are doing this great show. Between the Shadows, the Karen Kristen,
Yes.
they're going to be remembered. They just mentioned you guys actually at the end of their recent episode. Yeah, they plugged you guys.
Oh, cool.
They're great. They've been doing their show and they go over the storylines. Resident of Collinwood with Jewel T. Sains, he was mentioned you guys. So there's a lot. There are a lot of shows out there. If you switch, what is this?
Wait, hang on. Oh, I think he
Oh.
Wait,
I'm trying to show
Oh,
where you
what is
gotta
this? What is
hold
happening
on.
right now?
you gotta shrink. You've got to shrink the photo, John. There we go.
it. There she is.
There she is.
Oh no!
Ah,
Oh my
Amy.
God, that's insane. I love it.
Amy
Oh,
Jennings giving a lap
sweet.
dance.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
And you know,
I heard it was the coolest.
wild.
I wish I had met her. She seems like she was really cool.
She was so approachable,
fun.
Yeah.
My
She's
first-
so cool. I wish
my
I had
first-
met her.
My
I
first
met
California.
Sharon Smith. I've met Sharon Smith Lentz. I did a convention as Penny Dreadful at Coast City Comic Con, which no longer exists. That's in Portland, Maine. And when I saw the guest list, I saw Sharon was going to be there, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm going to be a guest at a convention that Sharon is going to be a guest at." I didn't care about whoever else was there that weekend. I was like super excited, and she is the nicest person. She was just so sweet. She gave me a Sarah Collins tote bag and just was just genuinely warm and kind, and I was so glad I got to meet her, and I had her on the podcast too recently. She's super cool.
Yeah, she's great.
The Dark Shadows cast is they're just great. They're just so nice. Everybody I've talked to that I've had the opportunity to talk to, everybody's been really friendly and nice and approachable. Because at first, like I'm sure as you guys have, I've met celebrities.
What?
I don't get what's that?
Quentin popped in for a minute.
Oh, I don't get so nervous at like cons and stuff, but Dark Shadows cast, I get like butterflies, in when I meet them. But they've all been really nice, super kind and friendly and approachable. So I love that about and they're all friends with each other. A lot of them are friendly with each other too, and they hang out and stuff. So that's really cool to see.
Yeah.
We ask this question every once in a while. I'm curious what your opinion is of this question. Who do you think was gay on Dark Shadows? Not as an actor. What characters do you think were gay?
The characters.
What characters do I think were gay? Oh, that's interesting. Oh,
Who was the redhead?
Claude North. No. Let me see.
Definitely, yeah. I go along with that. Yes.
Maybe Professor Stokes. I don't know.
Could be.
I think I go along with that. I think he might have sat on both sides of the fence.
Bisexual's great.
No, he's bi. Yes.
I'm a man of exotic tastes.
What's that?
Oh no, I'm just saying. He was a man of exotic tastes. And then, of course, I want to mention, because it is Pride Month.
Yes.
The gay actors who were on the show.
Yes. Well, first of all, let's talk about again. Craig worked on this. Whoops.
Yes. It's totally
As
okay.
Wolfie goes spilling over here. If you've never read it, Big Lou, Louis Edmonds' biography, which Craig worked on with with him, and Louis was very out and proud and really cool. He did the best cabaret shows at the festivals, so check out his autobiography. I think you can still get it.
I'll hold it up because for some reason your camera's backwards.
It goes backwards, okay, but yeah, you can check that out. Yeah, and I will say, I had mentioned this to Lamar when we were talking about her books and storylines and the whole idea that David was more than likely probably really Burke's son and not Roger's.
I have opinions about that too, but
do you agree or disagree?
I disagree. I don't
You
think he's
disagree.
Burke.
Okay.
But because then David wouldn't be a Collins, and the Collins line would end. It would be done.
Right.
I don't like that. I want the Collins line to continue. So to me, he's Roger's son. Despite
I'll go with that.
I think it's a red herring that it might have been Burke's son.
I'll go with that. Because I had pointed that out to her. I said I think Louis would have gotten a huge kick if you had made Roger gay in a book. I think Louis would have got a huge kick out of that. And then also,
I think that was a plan. One of the, I don't know if I should say this, but I think Mark B. Perry had planned to sort of do that later in life that Roger came out as gay. Yeah, I think he was thinking of. I don't know if he's going to go through with that or not, but I think that was one of the. I don't know if he mentioned that on the podcast. He may have mentioned it when I interviewed him, but that was one of the things I think he had talked about. But because
I love that idea.
Out, so.
And also too, check out just because it's a damn good book. Harvey Fierstein, who is so respected in the Broadway community and the film community. He's written a wonderful memoir. It's like you can just zip through it and to listen to with that voice that Harvey has, listening to him tell it. But he worked very closely with Joel Crothers, and so there's a lot of lovely remembrances of Joel Crothers, and they were very close. And we all have to remember that the characters they played on the show were not necessarily who they were in real life. It's called acting for a reason. And I think it's really cool that Harvey shared a lot of lovely stories about his time with Joel and about Joel's sexuality. So it's in there, and there's some really funny stories. So check that out too if you want some really great stories about what a sweet, lovely guy Joel was.
And Joel has a panel on the AIDS quilt. Commemorating his.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So just while we're on the Pride subject, but I want to thank you so much.
Oh my God, this has been great.
For doing this, for putting up with us for this long.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for inviting me to come on. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you guys, chatting with you guys. I've had a blast. Thank you so much, and I look forward to at some point having you guys on my podcast as well. I think that would be wonderful to talk with you there too. So thank you so much for having me.
And guys, check out Terror at Collinwood. Your next episode is due out when?
I'm hoping to get it out on the day before I head out to Remembrance. I'm leaving on the July 3rd, so I'm hoping to post it July 2nd. It's going to be the Gold Key Comics episode.
Great.
Jeff Thompson and Nick Caputo. We talked about Dark Shadows comic books, so that's a fun one. And hope to get that one out. And I'm going to bring my little recorder to Remembrance on Saturday. I hope to record some little snippets with people. So if you're at the Remembrance, I'm going to be there with my little microphone. I'm going to have some little Terror at Collinwood postcards here that and stickers too that I will give to you if you'd like one. So yeah, come find me. And I'll give you one of those. And I've got lots of episodes coming, and it should be fun. 91 Dark Shadows, I recorded that one. I have one coming up with Edward Gross. I have one coming up with Jimmy Hutchison, longtime Dark Shadows fan, wrote a lot of fanfic. And I know Michael knows him as well, fellow Jonathan
Love Jimmy.
Harris fan. So yeah, lots of good stuff coming up.
Good stuff coming up. And Michael Panzerato, thank you as always for being a delightfully charming Dark Shad-Bro.
Sheer joy.
We love
It's been a
having you.
sheer
We
joy. I
love.
loved tonight.
We love having you with us every week. And for all of us, tomorrow is the official day. So, if you're in Manhattan, go over to what was it, 433 West 53rd Street, and we'll raise a glass. Happy 58th anniversary, Dark Shadows, to Dan and Jonathan, Joan and Grayson and Thayer and everyone up there. Have a piece of cake on us.
Salute.
Have a sherry, have a brandy, and or go down to the Collinsport Inn and have a slice of Maggie's pie. So
Yes.
Again?
I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean it that way. You're terrible, John. I swear I didn't mean it that way.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Maggie, you minx.
Happy anniversary, Dark Shadows, and tune in next week. Thanks, guys.
Don't leave anybody.